My younger sister overslept and missed the college entrance exam. My mother wanted me to give up my university spot for her. She said it was no big deal. I could just repeat my senior year using my sister's identity later. With her prestigious 985 university degree, my sister flourished in both her career and love life, enjoyed a harmonious family, and lived a smooth, successful life. In my state of mental distress, my mother hastily married me off, and I was later killed by domestic violence. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn back in high school, staring at the mirror, seeing the identical hairstyle and dress as my sister's. I picked up a knife with an expressionless face and slashed it hard across my cheek. A bright, clean classroom, filled with the soft rustling of pens on paper. A pristine, smooth exam paper lay flat on the desk, still carrying the faint scent of fresh ink. I stood frozen in place, my hands trembling uncontrollably. "Hey, are you feeling okay?" "It's okay. Thank you, teacher." The questions on the exam paper are incredibly familiar. I don't even need to read the questions fully. I can write down the answers from memory. Every sleepless night due to pain, every time I was pinned in a corner and slapped violently by my husband, I got through it by silently reciting the questions in my head over and over, fantasizing about my future college life, the hideous, twisted face of a man, and the kitchen knife he brought down in a furious rage. It wasn't until right before I died that I realized I was just a supporting character in a cliché, runaway heiress, romance novel, a cannon fodder elder sister who only exists in memories, the catalyst for the deepening relationship between the male and female leads. While claiming to be burdened by guilt over my death and afraid to find happiness, my sister was simultaneously entangled with the male lead. Upon learning this, the male lead was filled with pity for her, confessing that he had noticed her a long time ago. He told her it wasn't her fault, that everything she had achieved was through her own hard work, and that her degree was merely a stepping stone. Finally, it was just the two of them. In the spin-off, my sister named her second daughter after me, saying it was to commemorate me. Thinking about this, a strong wave of nausea surged up from my stomach, and I rushed to the sink to vomit violently. Back in the classroom, my younger sister Jo Simu was sitting in my seat, chatting with classmates. My older sister loves copying me the most. She has to wear the same clothes, keep her hair the same length, and even her accessories are no exception. I'm always encouraging her to find a style that suits her, but she just won't listen. The girls involved in the discussion all wore identical looks of disgust on their faces. "So your sister is just a copycat, huh?" Those kinds of people are the worst. They have no mind of their own. Exactly. Just thinking about it makes me feel uncomfortable. "Poor Moo, you're so unfortunate." Jo Simu looked helpless. "There's no way around it. After all, she's my sister. You have such a kind heart." Moo, yes, so kind-hearted. It was only then that Jo Simu seemed to finally notice me standing behind them, greeting me warmly. "Sis, come over here." Hey, don't call her over. I can't stand looking at that gloomy face of hers. Yeah, I really don't know how to talk to her. Look, isn't that the hairclip Jolie is wearing? The one Moo had on a few days ago. Wow, copycat, how disgusting. Jo Simu covered her mouth and laughed. "Don't be like that. Everyone loves beauty, but this hairclip, she gave it to me a few days ago, saying she'd be happy to have matching accessories with me. I was so happy about this in my previous life." Thinking of this, I took off the hairpin on my head expressionlessly and threw it into the trash can in the corner of the classroom. Jo Simu's face darkened instantly. The girl next to me was still laughing. "Wow, the copycat actually has a sense of shame. What's the use of good grades when your character is so rotten?" I walked over and said coldly, "What exactly am I copying from her? Skipping class, playing petty politics, being at the bottom of the class?" "Jolie, don't push it too far," one of them shouted. I ignored her and walked straight to Jo Simu, who looked visibly uncomfortable. Towering over him, "Get up, I need to do my homework." The girls were about to argue, but Jo Simu intervened, playing the peacemaker. Forget it, my sister's in a bad mood, and it's my fault. I shouldn't have told everyone about the hairpin. Please, everyone, give me some face and don't hold it against her." "Moo, you're way too soft-hearted. I can't be bothered to watch their act." I went back to my seat and focused on my problems. After class, I went to the restroom. The cold water splashed on my face, clearing my muddled mind. "Jolie, are you okay?" The class committee member, who usually doesn't interact much, actually followed me, looking worried. It's okay, thank you. I forced a smile. The student council member froze for a moment, her freckled face turning slightly red. She mumbled softly, "You should smile more." "What?" I asked, puzzled. "You know, you always have this cold, unapproachable look on your face, like you only care about studying. It makes us all too nervous to even start a conversation with you, but you have a really lovely smile. You should smile more often." I was stunned for a moment. Ever since I was little, the most important thing in my life has been my studies. In the hazy memories of my past life, I seem to recall the class monitor approaching me too. What did I say back to her? It was something like, "Get lost, leave me alone," because only by bringing home the top grades in the entire school could I get a smile from my parents. So I gave up on fun, I gave up on socializing. In 18 years of life, I haven't made a single close friend. After the college entrance exam, no classmates contacted me. As a result, when my identical twin sister took my identity, not a single classmate questioned it. Seeing that I didn't respond, the class committee member quickly apologized. I'm sorry, I overstepped. I shouldn't have been so bossy." "No, thank you, I'll give your suggestion some serious thought." The tension left my brow, and this time, my smile was genuine. The girl in the mirror smiled back. Her face was as pale as a ghost, with a tiny, delicate visage featuring round almond-shaped eyes that curved into crescents when she smiled, making her irresistibly adorable. My sister and I are twins, and we look almost identical. As the heroine of a romance novel, her looks are naturally quite striking. "By the way, could I borrow your scissors from the craft class?" "Okay." The class monitor agreed immediately. Only when she handed me the scissors did she seem to remember something, asking, "What are you going to use them for?" I blinked. "You'll find out in a second." The next moment, under the class monitor's stunned gaze, my waist-length hair was cleanly chopped off to just above my ears. 5. After evening study hall ended, I went straight home. My parents have been away on business trips a lot lately. The only one at home was Jo Simu, who had skipped class and come back early. The moment she saw the length of my hair, her eyes filled with utter panic. "Sis, what made you decide to cut your hair all of a sudden?" "Washing it took too much time, so I cut it off," I replied calmly. Jo Simu had always been particular about her appearance, treasuring her smooth, jet black hair above all else. Making her cut her hair must have been so upsetting for her. Deep down, I know this kind of behavior is childish and pointless, but if it annoys Jo Simu even a little, it's worth it. 6. "Mumu, why did you cut your hair? It was so beautiful." "What a pity." Jo Simu forced a smile. "Just changing my look. Isn't it cute?" "Like this too." "That's true." Ignoring Jo Simu's gloomy and resentful gaze, I lowered my head to hide a cold smile. "This is just the beginning, my dear sister." The homeroom teacher came in holding the midterm exam papers from a while back. "Zhou Li is once again the top scorer in our grade for this test. Let's give him a round of applause." During the break, the class monitor came over to me with a look of envy in their eyes. "Congratulations, Zhou Li. I tried my best, but I still couldn't make it into the top 10. Hearing this, I rummaged through my desk and pulled out a few black-covered notebooks. "Here you go." "What's this?" "My notes." Upon hearing my words, the academic committee member first froze, then quickly flushed with excitement. "Is that okay? Can I see this?" Our class is a top-tier one, with extremely fierce competition. Everyone is a competitor, and sharing notes for free like this never happens. In my previous life, I was also the type who was extremely wary of classmates, but this time, I want to make some changes. I nodded and added a smile. "If you have any questions, feel free to ask me." "Wow, thank you, Zhou Li." The cheer from the academic committee member caught the attention of those around. A male classmate who overheard our conversation came over, scratching his head and asking, "Can I take a look too?" The academic committee member held the notes tightly to his chest like protecting a precious treasure. Shoo, this is what Shaoli lent me. Please, just one look. I really want to know if the top student's notes actually glow with a golden light like the legend says. I want to see too, please." Zhou Li, oh great academic god, I couldn't help but laugh. "Go ahead and look if you want. Just don't get your hopes up. The notes are written in black pen. They don't exactly sparkle with golden light." The class monitor paused, then said tactfully, Shaoli, the golden light is just a metaphor for quality, not literal glitter. The boy next to me blushed at my smile, stammering and unable to get a word out. 7. It felt nice for the first time to have someone noisy around, and I felt incredibly light-hearted on my way home. Maybe my life really has changed. For the first time since my rebirth, I had a good night's sleep. Even the next day, I felt light and cheerful on my way to school, but when I got to the classroom, my classmates' attitude was completely different from yesterday. Good morning, I tried greeting them, but no one acknowledged me. The class monitor arrived too, with red-rimmed eyes. She threw my notebook back onto my desk. What's going on? I grabbed her arm, seeing my genuine confusion. The class monitor spoke in a low voice. Take a look at the class group chat. My phone's broken. I sent it off for repairs a few days ago. I explained, so the student committee member placed their phone in front of me last night. Joe Simu posted a screenshot of a chat in the group. Sis, didn't you say people who score lower than you are trash? Why are you suddenly sharing your notes? Don't you find it amusing how they scramble for the notes like dogs? This is not right, sis. They are our classmates. Who cares if they're classmates or not? They're just a bunch of losers. The account she's talking to has my profile picture and my name, Shoyumu said in the group. After thinking it over and over, I still feel that my sister is wrong. So I posted it. Did I do something wrong? The comments below were a sea of righteous indignation. Absolutely. If it weren't for Moo Moo, we'd still be getting played by that bitch. I can't believe she's that kind of person. I was genuinely thanking her just yesterday. Amidst the chorus of accusations, the class monitor was the only one defending me. Chat logs can be faked. Jo Simu directly dropped a screen recording, proving that the person chatting with her was indeed me. Seeing this, I reached into my backpack to search. Sure enough, the receipt from the phone repair shop was gone. 8. Jo Simu addressed me in front of all our classmates. Come on, sis, if you did it, you did it. Let's just apologize properly and take our lumps. Okay, why should I admit to something I didn't do? There's nothing more to discuss. My phone is missing, so let's just call the police. Jo Simu cried out loudly, only realizing she had lost her composure after the fact, and quickly added, such a trivial matter, is it worth calling the police? Won't you be the one who ends up embarrassed? I sneered. If I'm the one who'll be embarrassed, why are you so anxious? With that, I stepped closer to her, one deliberate step at a time, and let out a soft, derisive laugh. Or is it that you're the one who'll end up embarrassed, and that's why you're in such a hurry? The panic on Jo Simu's face was plain to see. Without another word, I borrowed the class monitor's phone and called the police. Hey, officers. There must be some mistake. Our school has an excellent academic atmosphere and harmonious relations between teachers and students. How could a theft possibly occur here? The portly homeroom teacher, with a big head and a jovial smile, followed the police inside. The police ignored him. Which one is Jolie? Me. I stepped out of the classroom. The homeroom teacher shot me a fierce glare. Jolie, what valuable thing could a student like you possibly have lost? Stop making a scene, officer. My phone is missing. I suspect someone in my class took it. I told the police my suspicion directly. Someone stole my repair receipt and took the phone I had left at the repair shop. The person who stole the phone not only knew the passcode but also what happened in class yesterday. It had to be someone from our class. Moo Moo, where are you going? A female classmate's voice, tinged with confusion, rang out. Everyone, who had been focused on the police, immediately turned to look at Jo Simu, who was sneakily clutching his bag and trying to slip out the back door. I just wanted to use the bathroom. Jo Simu stammered. I walked straight up to Jo Simu, picked up her backpack, and turned it upside down. Everything inside clattered and scattered across the floor. A purple, caseless phone fell out. I picked it up and unlocked it. This phone was bought for me half a year ago when Jo Simu begged our mom to get a new phone, and she just got one for me as well, but she didn't want to use the same color as me. So she chose pink for herself and gave me purple. I acted so quickly that Jo Simu didn't even have time to react. Her expression changed, and she weakly started the argument first. Sister, have I done something wrong again? Why are you acting like this? I pretended to be innocent. Oh, I just thought you don't need to carry your bag to the bathroom, so I kindly offered to hold it for you. But, if it weren't for that, I wouldn't have found my phone in your bag. Sister, Do you want to explain that? I smiled warmly. But Jo Simu's face changed several times, and suddenly, she burst into tears. It wasn't me, I really don't know. It must have been someone who slipped it in during the chaos just now. Her words were punctuated by tears, which traced a path down her pale, gaunt cheeks. Her nose was red and flushed, a picture of pitiable vulnerability. A few of the male classmates had seen enough. Zhou Li, for all we know, you could have planted it yourself to frame Simu. Yeah, you've always been stuck up. And you love picking on Zhou Simu. I walked over, speaking word by word, me bullying her. How exactly did I bully her? Can you explain it? Are you willing to take responsibility for what you've said and done today? I swear that if I ever bullied her before, I deserve a horrible death. Do you dare to make such a vow? The male classmate blushed and remained silent. I walked up to Zhou Simu and whispered in his ear. The phone is worth over 3,000 yuan, which is enough to file a case. If you admit it now, I can cancel the report. Zhou Simu stubbornly refused to admit defeat. I insist it was someone else who gave it to me. What can you do without evidence? I smiled and walked up to the police. Officer, there should be surveillance at the phone repair shop. If we check, we can find out who stole it. Zhou Simu's face turned pale, and he began to beg for mercy. Sister, I was wrong. I was momentarily blinded by greed. Please don't file a case. I'm still young with a long life ahead. I beg you, sister. By now, what is there left for the classmates to not understand? Even the few male classmates who initially defended Zhou Simu now have cold faces and remain silent, their eyes filled with disdain. 9. In the end, I apologized to the police a few times and gave up on pursuing the matter to the bitter end. This punishment was far too lenient for Zhou Simu, but it wasn't the right time to burn all bridges just yet. I'm still waiting for the right opportunity. The homeroom teacher was very dissatisfied with me, but in the end, they had to let it slide because of my academic performance. Zhou Simu didn't even show up for afternoon classes and skipped school to go straight home. What have you done? Is this how you look after your sister when your father and I aren't home? The TV remote was hurled straight at my face. Staggering back from the sharp pain, I took 2 involuntary steps. A wave of dizziness washed over me. My mother's furious face split into 3, then merged back together. Zhou Simu stood behind my mother, her swollen, tear-reddened eyes glaring at me with hatred. My father sat on the sofa, smoking cigarette after cigarette. Zhou Li, my father said, go to school tomorrow and tell them you falsely accused your sister. You have good grades and a bright future ahead of you. What happened at school is nothing to you, but your sister can't afford to have her reputation tarnished any further. In that moment, I couldn't believe it. I had always thought that, at the very least, my father had some affection for me. It's just that he's been a timid, henpecked man his whole life, and never dared to stand up to my mother. He was the only relative who ever visited me after I married my previous husband. He was also the only one who shed tears after my death. But at this moment, I suddenly realized, if he loved me, how could he watch me being pushed into hell? In this world, the only one I can rely on is myself. So I said, no. 10. Late April, not too cold, but still shivering if you only wear a single layer. I was kicked out of the house with only a school uniform jacket on. Don't come back if you don't agree. We'll just pretend we never had you as a daughter. After hearing my response, my mom chased me out of the house with a broom. I scrolled through my phone, but couldn't find anyone to turn to. There's nothing I can do. This is all the result of my past actions. I plan to visit the school teacher tomorrow to apply for accommodation, with meals and lodging directly deducted from the scholarship. After all, if it weren't for the high scholarship this school offers and the opportunity to enroll my sister, my grades would have easily qualified me for the top-ranked high school in the province. Squatting under the bus stop, I finally opened an app and started solving problems. This is an anonymous problem-solving app with a vast number of competition-level questions that are rarely seen in everyday practice. Almost all the top students from across the country are gathered here. The difficulty of school and provincial exams doesn't even come close to a tenth of what's here. Next to my personal account, there's a golden number 2, indicating I'm ranked second on the app leaderboard. This app handles user privacy exceptionally well, not leaking any information. All communication takes place in public forums. There is no private messaging feature between users, but now, on my account's personal page, a red bell notification has appeared in the upper right corner, yet I am not Surprised at all, I feel unusually calm, I think. Is this the moment? A system notification popped up on the screen. Congratulations, you have been selected for the preliminary round of the 23rd National Science Competition Training Camp. The camp will run for 2 months next summer. It is a fully residential, all expenses paid, intensive training program. This camp is jointly organized by top domestic universities. Outstanding participants may receive direct admission offers. Please click the link below to apply. Note that this event requires you to fill in valid and accurate information, and you must pass an identity verification test. Admission is based on scores. The link is http://www. In my previous life, I gave up on this competition because my parents didn't approve of my long journey, and I was confident in my own abilities. It wasn't until I read the original text that I realized my sister managed to get close to the male lead by using the account information from the app on my phone, but this time, I'm going to seize my opportunity and won't hand it over to anyone. Letting out a white puff of breath, I clicked the link without hesitation. 11. Without needing to deal with my parents or sister, I focused on grinding through practice problems every day, and the time flew by. The final exam results for the second semester of sophomore year were out, and my photo still topped the list. After the parent-teacher meeting, my mom, for the first time ever, came to me on her own, smiling happily. Yes, this is my daughter. Oh, we don't worry about education at all. She takes after her parents, smart. Amidst the chorus of praise from the other parents, my mom spoke to me more gently for the first time in years. Lily, come home with me for dinner in a bit. I hid the sneer at the corner of my mouth and said, Mom, I need you and Dad to sign a permission slip for a competition I want to enter this summer. My mother's face instantly changed. Absolutely not. Why waste good money on that? It won't cost anything. It's free. Absolutely not. You should spend the summer bonding with your sister properly. Don't let things get awkward between you. No need, I said with a cold sneer. Your sister was just being mischievous and made a mistake. How can you, as her older sister, be so petty? Seeing my stubborn, silent expression, my mother got angry again in an instant. I told you not to go. Think you're all grown up now and deliberately trying to upset your mother. Huh? What's wrong with you lately? Why are you being so disobedient? I couldn't hold back my emotions and retorted, disobedient? Am I skipping classes like my sister or stealing things? Who exactly? Before I could finish, my mother slapped me so hard my head turned to the side. Embarrassed in front of everyone, she yelled at the top of her lungs, You little brat, how dare you talk to me like that? I'm your mother. What's going on, Mrs. Zhou? Don't get angry. Let's talk it out. And please don't hit the child. The homeroom teacher, Ms. Lee, rushed over with a worried expression, stopping my mom from kicking me. This escalated things. My mom redirected her anger, swiping Ms. Lee's glasses off with one hand. Ms. Lee, how do you educate your students? Huh? You've raised such disrespectful brats who don't even honor their parents. They throw tantrums, stay at school for months without coming home, and now they want to participate in some crappy competition during summer. Ms. Lee kept apologizing to my mom. Ms. Lee teaches math and usually ties her hair up in a bun. She wears black framed glasses and always has a stern expression, which makes the students quite afraid of her. However, I asked Ms. Lee, our homeroom teacher, about the competition. She said it's an annual competition that most high school teachers have heard of. Just because the entry barrier is too high and it's highly confidential, even their teacher isn't entirely clear on the specific procedures. She said she fully supports me. Mrs. Zhou, can we discuss the competition in the office? This is a great opportunity, and Zhou Li would see significant improvement if she participates. The teacher spoke sincerely. What does improvement have to do with me? I want her home now. I think I understand why my mom is being so relentless. She's afraid that if I'm away from home for too long, she'll lose control over me and won't be able to seamlessly have my sister take my place. Ms. Lee's eyes darted, and she whispered, Mrs. Zhou, just attending this training camp comes with a cash bonus. My mom paused, then asked hesitantly, How much? This number. Teacher Lee held up 5 fingers. 5000. Not much at all. My mom said that, but her expression clearly showed hesitation. With a determined look, Teacher Lee said, It's 50,000. I was speechless with surprise, watching Mr. Lee giving me a surreptitious wink. 12. The day we set off from school. The weather was pleasantly warm. Mr. Lee carried my bag for me and accompanied me all the way to the ticket gate. Did you pack everything? Do you have enough clothes? Oh, I put some common medicine in the side pocket for you. If you run short of money, just tell your teacher. Don't be shy. She kept chattering on. The sunlight fell on her hair, dyeing it a warm, golden orange hue. All right, hurry inside now. Don't miss your bus. Hey, what's with the tears, kiddo? Thank you. I'll definitely pay you back double that 50,000 in the future. I took the tissue from Teacher Lee, and my tears soaked almost the entire sheet. All right, go ahead. The best way you can repay me is by studying hard and living well. That face, usually so tense, was now forcing a smile, looking somewhat stiff and frightening, but I laughed. Yeah, I will, I promise. The bullet train took nearly 8 hours to get there. When I got off, my whole body felt stiff. Just as I was rubbing my wrist, a heavy force suddenly slammed into my shoulder. A tall, slender figure in a black bucket hat, and I tumbled to the ground together. The person wore a mask, and the visible eyes were dark and cold, making it impossible to tell if they were a man or a woman. The next second, they got up and walked straight into the room in the corner without a word. What a weirdo, I muttered. I rubbed my sore shoulder and walked away. Hey, you, have you seen someone about this tall, with a sour face? Or maybe their face was covered and you couldn't see it clearly. Suddenly, I was stopped by a few burly men asking me about someone. I covered my mouth, hesitating before saying, I think I saw someone, very thin, right, they seemed to have gone that way. Then he pointed in the exact opposite direction. After those burly men ran off for a few minutes, I knocked on the door of the corner room. They're gone. Then I hurried to catch a bus outside the station to the exam venue. 13. The preliminary round of the competition was held the next morning, with results announced the same day. I successfully advanced to the next round. The first place went to a tall girl with short hair, who was quiet and kept a cold expression throughout. Dorms are assigned based on grades, and I was paired with her in the same room. Her first words to me were, "Thank you, I owe you one." I paused for a moment, then realized, oh, you're the person from the station. The conversation ended there. After all, I don't have the energy to care about the past of a stranger. On the first day of the boot camp, a boy with striking red hair walked into the classroom, still chewing something. He walked straight to the seat next to me, propped his elbow on the desk, tilted his head, and smiled at me with a cheerful look in his eyes. Finally met you, Lee. I forced a smile. Hello. What I really thought was, stay away from me, you jerk. 14. That guy is really a jerk. He seizes every opportunity to ask, why did you unfriend me? Why? Yes, I did have a friend on the app before, and that was the male lead, Song Yu. His name is Soy, and he's perpetually ranked third. One night, I got a friend message from Soy. Just you wait, I'll surpass you sooner or later and shoot straight for the top. I turned him down and replied, go to bed, kid, you can dream about it. From then on, he started to compete with me. Every time he lost, he sent a friend request, and I mocked him each time. After a few exchanges, I accidentally clicked the confirm button and added him as a friend. From that point on, he never stopped. He went from spouting tough talk every day to actually telling me about the cutthroat family drama and power struggles in his wealthy household. By the third time he started, I began sending him practice problems, and that finally shut him up. After being reborn and getting my phone back, the very first thing I did was delete him. Song Yu was unbearably annoying, talking a mile a minute. To get some peace and quiet, people started avoiding me by association. I couldn't take it anymore. When Song Yu asked me again, I just blurted out a random excuse. Why did you delete me? Because you mentioned in the private chat that you're a guy. Song Yu was stunned. What's wrong with being a guy? I started rambling. You breathe, and you're a guy. I don't like guys who breathe. If you keep talking to me, I'll like you even less. I pointed my finger at the male classmate diagonally across the classroom, farthest from me, and spoke. That kind is good. I like that kind, understand? Just then, my cold-faced roommate walked by, perfectly blocking the direction of my finger. Song Yu fell silent. My roommate fell silent, too, fell silent. 15. After that day, Song Yu stopped bothering me and behaved like a proper classmate. Finally, I could focus on studying and practicing problems every day. The pace at the training camp is intense. Getting up at 6 a.m. and sleeping at 12 a.m. is considered easy. This place gathers top students from across the country, and there were times I didn't even make the top 20. That's when I realized many people here had study resources just as good as those anonymous apps, but my roommate always came out on top, and after spending more time with her, I found she was actually a really nice person. The first time my grades fell out of the top 20, I stayed up until 2 in the morning struggling with a tough physics problem, frustrated and frantic. I clawed at my own arm until it was covered in bloody scratches. This data point is a trap. We should set the other number as X. A cool, detached voice spoke up from behind me. I turned to see my roommate, with dark circles under her eyes, standing there like a ghost. Thanks to her clear and simple explanation, I finally understood the steps to solve the problem, and a wave of relief washed over me noticing my roommate staring intently at me, looking like she had something to say but was holding back. A chill ran down my spine as I suddenly remembered the embarrassing misunderstanding caused by Song Yu. I tactfully explained the whole story. So it was just a silly misunderstanding, I swear. After a long silence, she finally spoke in a quiet, distant tone. I was just going to say, the desk lamp is really harsh on the eyes. I quickly apologized and turned off the light. Before going to bed, I remembered something and asked her, my name is Zhou Li, what's yours? Jiang Shuyue, she said with a tone of helplessness. On the day the training camp ended, I packed up my things and turned to talk to Jiang Shuyue. See you at S University. I smiled and said goodbye to her. Jiang Shuyue also faintly curved the corners of her mouth, like a lake whose icy surface had melted under the spring breeze. See you at S University, she said. 16. By the time I rushed back to school, the first semester of senior year had already started. The class committee member was happy to see me and curiously asked about the training camp. A sarcastic female voice interjected. Class committee member. Zhou Li is now a national-level top student, probably looking down on us now. Exactly, she didn't reach out all summer, didn't even reply to messages. All that friendliness before was probably just an act. The class monitor offered a meek defense. Maybe Zhou Li was just really busy. Have some self-respect. Just because her grades are good, you don't have to be such a simp for her. Li Hua from the class next door is already applying for early admission. I don't know what's so impressive about attending some competition training camp. The speakers were all close friends of Zhou Simu, and she sat in the center of the group, her eyes challenging as if to say that what happened before didn't bother her at all. Before I could say anything, the other classmates couldn't stand it anymore. How can you even say that? Why don't you join the training camp? Is it because you don't want to? What's that sour smell in the classroom? Did someone drink vinegar? Oh, that's just sour grapes. The class committee member and I exchanged a knowing smile. I created a new group and sent a bunch of files. These are some typical problems from the competition. I've compiled them for everyone to try. The group cheers. Wow, thank you Zhou Li, long live Zhou Li. The class monitor and I exchanged a knowing smile. I had told her before the competition that I'd be out of contact for 2 months. The training camp was completely closed off with signal jammers to ensure students could focus solely on their studies. My mom called and harassed me a few times. Get your ass home, your little sister hasn't been eating properly the whole time you've been gone. I sneered back at her. Then starve, you little son of a bitch. I'll beat you to death. You hear me? Then you can forget about having a daughter in college. The other end of the line fell silent. My mother is obsessed with saving face. If any relative's kid gets into college, she'll stew in bitter jealousy for weeks, secretly wishing they'd get hit by a car. Now, she's just counting on me acing the college entrance exams so she can finally show off and hold her head high. I guess people really do pick on the weak and fear the strong. Ever since I started standing my ground, life has been much easier than it was in my past life, I added, and stop calling me. It's annoying. If my head's not in the right place, I might even bomb the exams. From then on, the peaceful days continued until the college entrance exam, until I was imprisoned at home again. 17. A chain was fastened around my ankle, and my range of movement was limited to the bedroom and the living room. Laughter spilled out from her sister's bedroom, where she was with their mom. Come on, Mumu, try this dress on for mom. It looks beautiful. You should wear this to the interview. I sat on the couch, staring blankly. my hair a messy tangle ever since her classmates stopped supporting Jo Simu. Her absences from class have become more frequent. I still took the college entrance exam. Though my score didn't break 200, I became much closer with my classmates. And naturally assumed my family had given up on the idea of the substitution. After the exam results came out, I packed my things and went home to get my ID card. When I opened the door, my mother was standing there, warm and gentle. "Oh, Lily's back. You must be exhausted from the exams. Your parents have been missing you so much. They didn't contact you because they didn't want to disturb you. Now that you're back, let's have a nice family dinner tonight and clear up any misunderstandings. There's no grudge that can't be resolved within a family. My mom has never spoken to me so gently and smiled like this, not even in both her lifetimes combined." I was momentarily stunned. Jo Simu was sitting beside me, his face dark and displeased. While eating, my mom kept piling food onto my plate. When I complained about the food being too salty, she eagerly poured me a glass of water. Little did I expect that glass of water would make me pass out before I could finish my meal. I gave a bitter smile. I had thought things would be different this time around, but I still fell right into the trap. The mother and daughter walked past me, arm in arm. "Mom, what should I say if they ask how I managed to get such good grades?" "Just make something up on the spot. How would they know what's true or not?" Ding dong. The doorbell rang. My mom acted quickly, pulling the chain to lock me in the room. Through the door, I heard Jiang Shuyue's voice. "Hello, is Zhou Li here?" 18. I heard my sister's slightly puzzled voice. "It's me. Who's this?" After a long silence, Jiang Shuyue spoke coldly. "Sorry, I mistook you for someone else." The outside fell silent, and the door was closed. Another few days of endless darkness passed. Someone knocked on the door. The moment I saw the swollen, yellowish face of the visitor, I trembled uncontrollably. "Come in, Xiaofang, quickly." My mother warmly ushered the drunken man to sit down. The man appeared to be in his 40s, with a large head and a heavy build. His steps were unsteady, and his eyes had unhealthy dark circles. His eyes darted around restlessly. In my memory, a thick, rough palm came slamming down with force. The searing pain left my head spinning and ears ringing. In my past life, it was clearly 2 years later that I was married off. My face went pale, and on instinct, I scrambled and stumbled, trying to flee to my room, but my mother grabbed me by the hair. "Where do you think you're running, you rude little brat? Come here. I want to introduce you to someone." The man called Xiaofang turned his eyes. His gaze was disgustingly sticky, as if stripping off my clothes and examining me inch by inch. He narrowed his eyes and shouted angrily, "What's going on? Is this the beautiful daughter you were talking about? You dare to deceive me, with that skinny frame. You dare to ask for 60,000 yuan in betrothal money. How could that be? It's just that I haven't been out recently, and I haven't bathed." My mother quickly forced an apologetic smile and, ignoring my resistance, shoved me toward the bathroom. "Hurry up, get in the shower, and don't you dare close the door. Let Brother Fong have a look." In that instant, I was trembling with such rage I couldn't stop. No matter what, I'm still her daughter. How could she do this? I turned my face away, biting my lip in silence. The man grew even more displeased, grumbling curses under his breath as he made a show of leaving. "Damn it, not only are you plain looking, but you're also disobedient. What, am I supposed to be some sucker spending money to buy myself a master?" My mother delivered a vicious kick to the small of my back. The searing pain made my whole body curl into a tight ball. "Mom, I'm home." My sister burst into the house excitedly, only to slam right into a man who stood like a wall of flesh. She let out a shriek and, her face pale, slapped the man, her long nails leaving streaks of blood on his face. Furious, the man was about to strike back, but the moment he saw her face, he stopped dead in his tracks. "Oh, this girl, still so clumsy and careless even at her age. Go wash your hands and get ready for dinner." My mother hastily pulled my younger sister behind her to shield her, pushing her toward the inner room as she spoke. Only when my sister's figure vanished around the corner did the man click his tongue in regret and finally look away. Rubbing his hands together, he ventured with a lecherous grin, "If it were that daughter of yours, I'd be willing to add another 20,000, no, 50,000. My mom's face immediately darkened, and she rolled her eyes. "My eldest daughter, well, She's a top student who got into Tsinghua or Peking University through a special recommendation. You're only good enough for that trash over there. If you're not satisfied, fine. There are plenty of suitors lining up. If it weren't for your sincerity, do you think you'd even be considered? Hey, let's discuss this again. The two of them bargained over me right in front of me, treating me like some kind of non-human commodity. In the end, the bride price was increased by 6,000. The man's face was full of anger, cursing loudly. Damn bitch. Why is it so expensive? I'm losing out big time. Why are you so different from your sister? If you don't give me two fat boys, I'll beat you to death. His thick, sweaty, and boozy hand gripped my arm like a pair of pliers, impossible to break free, while the other hand reached up to tear at my clothes, but my mother stopped him. A faint glimmer of hope suddenly stirred within me. The man grew even more irritated, having second thoughts. Don't push your luck. There's no more money. You haven't paid yet. What's that saying? Right, cash on delivery. You can take her once the money's handed over, my mother said with a sneer. What if you take the money and don't hand her over? We've lived here as a family for over a decade. Do you think we're going to run away? All right, then wait. I'm going to get the money now. Do I need to prepare the household registration book? What's the point of preparing that thing? Get the certificate, my mom exclaimed. Forget it. Let's talk about it after having a son. All right, but hurry up. Time's running out. There are plenty of suitors waiting for my daughter. Got it. The man looked back several times before leaving. It was that uncomfortable gaze again, making me feel almost sick. 19. Over an hour later, the man rushed back, drenched in sweat. My mom eagerly pushed me out the door as soon as she took the cash. The sweaty man's eyes flashed with a fleeting greed, followed by a hurried sense of regret. He called out to my mom, his expression looking very unnatural. Wait, her ID card and household register. Bring them here. What do you need it for? I thought about it, and it's better to get it registered. That way, if they run off, it won't be so hard to file a police report and track them down. My mother was busy counting money and didn't press for details. Once she found the documents, she tossed them all out. She never looked up or glanced my way. Her figure vanished into the narrowing gap of the closing door. I silently watched the man stuffing his credentials into his jacket, my mind racing. The man pulled me away urgently, as if a countdown was ticking above his head, threatening his life at any moment. The car parked downstairs was an ordinary black van. My heart skipped a beat. The man urged me. What are you standing there for? Get in the car. My hands were tightly bound with rope inside my coat. And with a light shove from the man, I tumbled into the car. Then, in the back seat, I saw a face that was both familiar and strange. She stared at my state, stunned. You look absolutely wretched. I closed my eyes and exhaled a deep breath with all my strength. You're really late, Jiang Shuyue, the bird of gratitude. Miss Jiang, you see, I brought the person. So about that money. A man's ingratiating laugh sounded from behind. Jiang Shuyue nodded and called out toward the driver's seat. Uncle Yang. Then, from several other cars parked alongside, 7 or 8 men in suits filed out in quick succession. A few of them looked vaguely familiar, as if they were people she had encountered at the station before. I stared at Jiang Shuyue in stunned silence. Jiang Shuyue rubbed her nose, her ears turning a rare shade of pink. My family runs a bodyguard company, she explained. In the blink of an eye, 2 burly men subdued the overweight man, gagged him, and dragged him toward another vehicle. Find a place, break his legs, Jiang Shuyue ordered emotionlessly. Wait, I stopped her. Jiang Shuyue gave a questioning look. I signaled her to relax, stroking the household register and ID card in my hands. I walked up to the man and crouched down. Let's go, we're getting our marriage license. 20. I told you I'm Zhou Li. What gives you the right to keep me out? If you delay my daughter's interview with your leader, can you take responsibility for that? As soon as I stepped out of the elevator downstairs at the TV station, I heard my sister throwing a tantrum. My mother stood behind her, also confronting the staff. The staff member led me over, looking troubled. Zhou Li, about your sister's matter. Sorry, I'll go take care of it right away. Zhou Simu was wearing a pale yellow floral sundress today, which accentuated her slender waist and fair arms, but as I got closer, the twisted anger on her face shattered that first impression, leaving only a sense of sharp unpleasantness. Jo Simu, stop making a scene. I called out to her, shut up. Ah, Jo Simu screamed the moment she saw my face, as if she had seen a ghost. Your face. A hideous long scar ran from my right eye down to my jaw, with red and white flesh visible. I touched the scar and smiled. What's wrong, little sister? While my sister was still in a daze, my mom rushed over, reaching out to grab my hair, all the while cursing as she ran. Jo Simu, what's going on? Not only did you not behave in high school, but now you're trying to take your sister's place in college. Come on, let's go home. I took a step back, narrowly avoiding her long nails. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm Jolie. I put on an innocent face and fished out a newly reissued ID card from my clothes, one I had just gotten a few days ago using my household register. The photo on it was unmistakably me, bearing a hideous scar. Seeing this, my mother immediately threw herself to the ground, kicking and screaming in a tantrum. Oh, what a sin. How could I have given birth to such an ungrateful daughter? She used to steal money from home, take her sister's phone, skip classes, and now she even wants to steal her sister's grades. Mom, I want to go to a university. There are so many tall buildings there. Jo Simu shouted from the side. All right, then we'll go to a university. I smiled, pretending to be surprised. Ah, Jolie was admitted to S University through a competition, didn't you know? My mother paused for a moment, her eyes darting, then threw a tantrum. My daughter gets good grades. Are you saying she's not allowed to change schools? The commotion was huge, and happening right in the first-floor lobby, so a crowd of onlookers quickly gathered. Even TV reporters caught wind of it and rushed over, setting up their cameras. If a mother says so, it must be true, right? I bet that scar is from getting into trouble and being slashed for not knowing how to behave. I didn't speak up until the crowd had packed the hall, 3 layers deep, and not a drop of water could pass through. Actually, there's a very simple way to tell us apart. Just give us a set of competition problems. Whoever scores higher is the one, isn't that right? Hearing this, my mom got anxious. She also knew that even 6th grade problems might be beyond Jo Simu's understanding, let alone competition questions. My mom grabbed me and was about to leave. Stop causing trouble, just look at the trouble you've caused for the TV station. Wait, Aunt Jo, what a coincidence. We just happened to have a few questions prepared for today's interview by a senior college entrance exam question writer. The TV host smiled and stopped us, as if their eyes were saying, this month's KPI is secured. The recording location was changed to a conference room. The papers were laid out, and I had just finished 2 questions when a loud crash of overturned desks and chairs came from the diagonal position. Jo Simu's chair, where she had been sitting, was now kicked to the door, her face full of jealousy and hatred. She bolted out the door and ran away. My mom hurriedly chased after her. Now everyone present understood everything. The interrupted recording resumed, and I skipped over the matter of Rebirth, detailing everything about my family. The host patted my shoulder and said, I'll go ask the boss for permission to cut in line and rush your segment on air. 21. I borrowed 2 bodyguards from Jiang Shuiyue and went home. My mom opened the door, saw me, and her eyebrows furrowed as she was about to start yelling, Mom, this is the last time I'll call you that. I spoke first, my voice trembling faintly but undetectably. Can you tell me why you hate me so much? This is a question I've pondered for 2 lifetimes and still can't understand. Mom took my sister to the amusement park for her birthday, leaving me alone to watch the house. Dad works away from home all year. Whenever I bring it up, he says he's tired from work and tells me to be more understanding. Sometimes I sit on the balcony, looking down from the 7th floor, and wonder what it's like to die. They're twin daughters, identical in every way. I've always been well-behaved and obedient since I was a child, and I've always done well in my studies. But why does my mother hate me so much? When my mother heard my question, she turned to look at me with cold indifference and impatience in her eyes. Who told you to be so unentertaining? Get out of here. If you come back asking for tuition, I won't give you a single penny. Oh, right. Come back after you've started working. Save up some money properly for your sister's dowry. My mother's brazen demand was something I had no heart to listen to anymore. Feeling nothing but utter absurdity inside. 2 lifetimes, decades, was all the suffering I endured simply because I couldn't act cute or sweet talk to make them happy. I let out a sigh and suddenly felt a sense of release towards family ties. Jiang, I have something for you, I called out to my mom and handed her a little red booklet. What is this? Grumbling, she took it, but the moment she opened it, she froze on the spot as if struck by lightning. After leaving home that day, I took the household register and the ID card of Zhou Simu that my mother had thrown at me, and went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a marriage certificate with that man. After taking the photo, I looked at my reflection in the mirror, the same hairstyle and dress as my sister's, with an expressionless face. I picked up a knife and slashed it hard across my cheek. As long as I wear this face identical to Zhou Simu's, they will never stop coveting my life. I have to be ruthless, to myself, and to them. Zhou Simu, in this lifetime, it's your turn to taste the agony of being trapped between life and death. You monster, I'll kill you. You've ruined your sister's entire life. How can you be so vicious? Why don't you just die? My mother's face flushed crimson like a demon, her long nails swiping towards my face. The next second, the bodyguard behind me pinned her arms behind her back, rendering her immobile. When I make expressions, the muscles pull on the scar that runs from my cheek down to my jaw. Intense pain pulls at my nerves, yet I smile. Without looking back, I left the place where I had lived for 2 lifetimes and ran toward Jiang Shuyue and the class committee waiting for me in the sunlight. Lily, your face. The student committee member was seeing my scar for the first time, tears streaming down her face. Full of panic, I reassured her, speaking lightly, it's okay, with advanced medical technology, I can have a scar removal surgery in a few years. The 3 of us walked side by side out of the neighborhood. Officer, this is the place. My wife is mad at me and has gone back to her parents' house to sulk. Please help me talk her into coming back. Got it. What a hassle. A fat, round man led an officer into the building behind me. When our eyes met, he was the one who first looked away in fear. By the way, which company does your wife work for again? She's on the 7th floor. Her name is Zhou Simu, 22, in the 2nd semester of her freshman year. Zhou Simu stole a phone to call the police in order to escape from an abusive man. She confessed everything about imprisoning me and begged the police to let her go home. But my mother didn't want to go to jail, claiming it was all Zhou Simu's nonsense. They got into a fight, and my mother fell down the stairs, becoming a vegetable and slipping into a coma. When my father saw the amount of money spent on hospital treatment, he turned around and ran to another province, never to return. As for Zhou Simu, she was taken back home by her abusive husband from the police station. This incident caused quite a stir locally. However, since everyone knows about my family situation, no one has the nerve to accuse me of being heartless. During my senior year, I caught a distant glimpse of Zhou Simu when I returned to my alma mater. She was holding a broken wine bottle she had dug out of the trash, slashing at her face while muttering to herself in a deranged manner, I am Zhou Li, I am. Her husband came charging around the corner, kicked her twice, and dragged her away while cursing, crazy woman, running off again. I'll beat you to death, damn it. Now we'll have to turn off the lights at night. Just looking at you makes me sick. Xiao Li, what are you looking at? The distinguished alumni speech is about to begin. Teacher Li called out to me from a distance. Nothing, I'm coming. I walked over, the sunlight shining on my face, as pure as ever. 23, Lily, are you ready? The class monitor looked at me. Shuyue, are you ready? I looked at Jiang Shuyue. Jiang Shuyue remained silent. Ready, Song Yu shouted. 3, 2, 1, open for business. Song Yu waved his hand. Eat whatever you want. Today I, Song Gongzi, will cover the bill for everyone. Yay. The student council member grabbed me with one hand and Jiang Shuyue with the other, rushing into the hot pot restaurant and ordering 28 meat dishes. Don't waste food, Song Yu cried out. His chain hot pot restaurant opened its 38th branch today. The previous 37 branches all went bankrupt. Who told him to insist on seafood air flown from Sanya, beef freshly slaughtered from Wagyu, and vegetables grown in greenhouses? But the price is way out of reach for ordinary people. If he doesn't go out of business, who will? If Zhou Simu hadn't swindled him out of his feelings and his money in this lifetime, he'd still be a clueless rich kid to this day. Song Yu asked me, somewhat awkwardly, by the way, Zhou Li, have you figured out where you're going after graduation? The student council member, and Jiang Shuyue exchanged knowing smiles. Song Yu was displeased. Don't ignore me, the student council member chuckled. I'm planning to take the graduate exams, aiming for your threes. Schools, to fulfill my dream of attending Tsinghua or Peking University. While Song Yu wasn't looking, I quickly snatched the last piece of fatty beef from the pot with my chopsticks. Amidst his grumbling protests, I said, I've applied for a 3-year teaching stint in a rural school. I'll come back and take the postgraduate entrance exam afterwards. I thought to myself, if I can help even one more girl use education to change her destiny and push back against her family circumstances, it's always a good thing. Jiang Shuyuan nodded. What do you mean, are you planning to go too? Song Yu was exasperated. Jiang Shuyuan nodded again. Song Yu, you really are ganging up on me. Ignoring his protests, we all dove in and devoured the shrimp paste balls from the hot pot. Full and satisfied, we slumped together, laughing our heads off. How wonderful. Each day is peaceful, joyful, and full of hope. I believe my whole life will continue to be this way. Story 2. In the year when we were driven to desperation, my sister and I became the canaries of the Crosby family brothers, bearing their children. Due to her tear incontinence condition, my sister was taken away by the psychopathic elder brother Crosby. Being born mute, I ended up with the illegitimate son Wolf, who had a deceased mute white moonlight in his heart. In the 5th year of our muddled existence, my sister said she wanted to leave, because Crosby was obsessed with watching her cry. He accidentally killed her kitten and their son cheered for Crosby. She told me to behave, follow Wolf, and take good care of my child. She said she would visit me often once she settled down. I held onto her suitcase and told her in sign language, but I don't love him, nor do I love that child. I came to the Crosby family just to follow you, sister. My sister sighed softly. Then let's go together. After putting in the last piece of clothing, I closed the suitcase. The small suitcase still had nearly half of its space empty. My elder sister lifted the suitcase for me and asked softly, is this all? I nodded, then pointed to the very small silver-gray suitcase in the corner. That was the one my sister was taking with her. Clearly she's just like me. After living with the Crosby family for 5 years, we didn't leave behind many things that truly belonged to us, each carrying a suitcase. My older sister reached out to hold my hand as we went downstairs together. Downstairs in the living room, my son Ronan and my sister's son Jasper were playing video games. With controllers in hand, my sister took me by the hand and led me to stand before them. Ronan, whose view was partially blocked, immediately screamed, "Get away, a mute and a crybaby. How annoying." I stood motionless. The sound of game failure came from the TV behind me. Ronan angrily reached out, knocked over my suitcase, threw down the game controller and jumped up to glare at me. Are you mute, or deaf too? Jasper sat aside without speaking, but couldn't hide the disgust in his expression. His temperament resembles Crosby's, and being considerably older than Ronan, he's better at controlling his emotions. My sister crouched down and helped me lift the suitcase. When she stood up again, she calmly looked at Jasper. When your dad and uncle return, tell them I've left with Auntie. Jasper remained silent. My sister didn't say anything more and took me out with her. As we were about to step out of the entranceway, Jasper's voice suddenly called from behind, aren't you coming back? My sister took my hand, her grip momentarily stiffening. She paused at the doorway, remaining silent for a long while before finally walking away without turning back. Just said quietly, not coming back. Ronan's cheer came from behind. Great, the two annoying pests are finally gone. Jasper fell silent. The height of summer was scorching hot, with heavy rain pouring outside. As we parted, my elder sister held the umbrella, tilting it deliberately toward my side. The other day, Wolf got scolded by the Crosby family and dragged me to the racetrack to vent his anger, nearly crippling one of my legs in a collision. My wound had just begun to scab over, and my sister worried it might get wet. I glanced at her dampened shoulder, to which she immediately responded with a gentle smile. It's fine, I'm strong. In the taxi, she changed the gauze on my leg for me. When she looked up again, her eyes were reddened, her voice trembling. It must hurt a lot, right? Never again, I promise. I shook my head and signed to her, it doesn't hurt. After getting out of the taxi, we boarded the high-speed train. The long railway tracks take us back to our long-missed seaside hometown. Midway, Crosby unprecedentedly called his sister. Sitting close by, I heard an unhappy voice on the other end. Where have you been? Outside the window, the scenery rushed backward at high speed, Her sister pressed one hand against the window pane, fingers curling restlessly, yet her voice remained as calm and gentle as ever. I've cleared all my belongings. If there's anything left behind, please throw it away for me. Crosby's voice grew heavy, laced with impatience. I asked you, where did you go? My sister has been accustomed to obedience all these years. When our father was still alive, she obeyed him in everything. After father passed away, she followed Crosby and obeyed him in everything. So when she spoke again, her voice carried an unnatural awkwardness. You don't need to know. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. The other side seemed surprised by sister's attitude. After a long silence, they finally said angrily, did I agree to let you leave? Sister's voice gradually softened. You have no reason not to agree. She knew it all these years. Crosby had someone else in his heart. The man laughed in extreme anger. Just because of that damn cat. This time, my sister remained silent for a long while. So long that I suspected the other end had already hung up too. Only then did I finally hear her speak again. Well, you can take it that way. Crosby's cold laugh came through. Perfect timing. Eden can't find a place to rent and wants to stay with me for a few days. Then you and your dear sister can stay outside forever. After the words, there was the beep beep sound of the call ending. My sister put down the phone and hugged me again. She could never hold back her tears, but was afraid I'd feel sad if I saw them. Yet I still sensed it, her tears silently falling onto my shoulder. I let her hold me, feeling her body tremble. After a long while, I gently pushed her away. I fished out a bank card from my pocket and pressed it into her palm. I comforted her with sign language. I've saved a lot of money. From now on, I can stay with you and live well. It's okay, just a man. We don't have to rely on others. After all, from the moment I was born, the only ones my sister and I could truly rely on were each other. My sister wiped her tears, forced a smile, and nodded. The high-speed train races forward, the Kyoto where we lived for 5 years. Everything there is gradually fading away. After disembarking the high-speed train, we took a ferry. It was nearly midnight when we finally reached the island. There's an old house here left by my father. It's not big, but it'll do for now. It's the only thing he left for me and my sister after he passed away. The house hasn't been lived in for a long time and has gathered quite a bit of dust by the time we finished cleaning up. It was almost dawn. Through the window, we could see a faint glow gradually rising over the distant seaside. We decided not to sleep and went to the beach to watch the sunrise. Sitting on the soft sand, the sea breeze blew away all the drowsiness from staying up all night. In the distance, the sun gradually rises above the sea's horizon, then suddenly breaks through the clouds, casting golden light across the water. I rested my head on my sister's shoulder. She suddenly spoke up, saying, I want to open a restaurant here. Many years ago, she had also said these words to me. Later, Dad died, leaving behind a mountain of debt. She went to find her ex-boyfriend Crosby, bringing along 6-year-old Jasper. After that, the ex-boyfriend became her sugar daddy, and she became his nameless, unofficial mistress. When the restaurant couldn't stay open, she found other ways to cook for Crosby. But just a few days later, Crosby calmly frowned and told her, we don't need a maid at home. I don't want to come home to a woman reeking of cooking oil. It's disgusting. After that, my sister never cooked again. Crosby still never gave her a friendly look. She finally realized it had nothing to do with cooking. He simply found her disgusting as a person. But now, none of that matters anymore. I raised my beer can and clinked it with my sister's. Then, I wish you success, sister, and a smooth journey ahead. Sister's restaurant opened its doors very quickly. 3. I also invested in a travel agency, starting to work as a sign language tour guide serving the deaf and mute community. There are over 20 million deaf and mute people in the country, yet sign language tour guides remain scarce. I began leading groups of deaf-mute people, shuttling through this small island, taking them to watch sunrises and sunsets, going beachcombing at low tide, catching crabs under the reefs, watching them use familiar and warm sign language to smile and say, thank you, to me. After finishing the tours, I'd go to my sister's seafood restaurant for a meal, waiting for her to close up so we could go home together. The restaurant's business is getting better and better. My sister is beautiful and runs an honest business. The shop gradually got filmed by people and spread on social media, becoming a viral hotspot. Days pass one by one. Wolf and Ronan, like a fading ink painting, gradually faded from my memory. It wasn't until over a month later, Late at night when I finished work and was about to sleep, Wolf suddenly sent a message. "What are you doing?" For a moment I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I followed Wolf for 5 years, occasionally going away for a few days at times. Sometimes I'd travel out of town, or stay at my sister's place for a while, but throughout those 5 years, no matter when, Wolf never once asked about my whereabouts. I stared at that message for a long while, unable to figure out how to reply. After quite a while, another message came from the other side saying, "Sent to the wrong person." I felt it was within expectations, exited the chat interface without giving it much thought, contacted the travel agency again to inquire about tomorrow's tour arrangements. It wasn't until I finished my busy work that I noticed Wolf had sent another message half an hour ago. "How's your leg?" I didn't understand what he suddenly meant by that. Maybe he sent the wrong message, felt awkward, and just added this line to make conversation, or perhaps, given his personality, he was just mocking me and enjoying my misfortune. No matter what, there's no need for me to reply anymore. The healed wound on my calf seems to be throbbing faintly again. That day at the racetrack, Wolf drove straight toward me, the sound of wind howling past my ears. The man's cold yet frenzied face became vividly clear once more. "It feels like there's a thorn in my heart, abruptly scratching through." I clicked on his profile picture, hesitated for a moment, then directly tapped delete. Since I've decided not to return to Kyoto, there's no need to stay in contact anymore. After all these years of ambiguous entanglement with him, leaving now seems to require no formal farewell. The phone finally quieted down. After washing up, I went to bed, closing my eyes. Somehow I suddenly remembered the first time I met Wolf. That day I went to Kyoto to visit my sister, and got caught in a sudden heavy rainstorm, leaving me utterly drenched and disheveled. But Crosby had the servants block me at the wrought iron gate, looking at me calmly and indifferently as he said, "This isn't a junk shelter. I don't take in useless outsiders." I explained to him, "My sister is Violet, she's your girlfriend." What answered me was the man's incredulous sneer, "Girlfriend? She doesn't deserve that title. I can't get in, and my sister can't leave either. She owes Crosby and hasn't paid him back yet." That's when Wolf drove over. With a sloppy demeanor, he laughed and scolded Crosby. "Are you even human? Letting your woman's younger sister stand out in the rain?" Crosby said calmly, "Then take her back with you." Wolf really did take me back. He coaxed me gently. "My place is closer to here. When you miss your sister, it's just a 10-minute walk to see her." Back then, I just thought he was such a kind person. I don't know how deep his grudge against Crosby was. He just wanted to see the other person miserable, like my sister. I've never been treated kindly by anyone either. So when others show the slightest kindness, they're overwhelmed with gratitude, truly believing the other person is a living saint on earth. They'd eagerly tear out their own heart and hand it over to the other person. Only later, when their heart is repeatedly stabbed, do they see the other's true colors. Then they realize they were just a passing joke, something the other person amused themselves with on a whim. I slept in a daze, my eyes seemingly slightly moist. In my grogginess, my phone seemed to ring. I fumbled for the phone and answered it, only then noticing it was a call from Ronan's smartwatch. For I had blocked Wolf, but forgot to block this number. It was the familiar voice of a little boy. "Why haven't you come back yet?" From the age of 3, when he began to understand things, Ronan never called me Mom again, simply because from the moment he was born, too many people around him told him Mom is a detestable mute, a despicable villain, so his way of addressing me gradually narrowed down to just 2 words. "You," or "Hey." I calmly texted to remind him, "I told you when I left that I wouldn't be coming back." On the other end, Ronan's tone began to carry accusations of displeasure and anger. "You're my mom. How could you abandon me? Do you know I went to kindergarten today and forgot to bring my change of clothes? It's all your fault for not being home to help me pack my school bag." All these years he's been spoiled by the Crosby family, with no manners at all, and has grown accustomed to shouting at me. I've also tried to discipline him before, but ever since he was 3, he stopped listening to me. The Crosby family looked down on a mute like me raising a child. Ronan even spoke to me with disgust. I was just speaking a bit louder. "Our family has plenty of money. Who dares to criticize me? Do you expect me to be like you, a timid and useless mute?" Gradually, I began to feel weary of it all. Thinking about it, the Crosby family truly has the means to spoil him for life. If he refuses to listen to me, so be it. I stopped caring about him, ignoring his disdain and Scolding towards me gradually, I began to feel less love for him over there. He was still aggressively questioning me. Come back immediately. Do you know how many days it's been since I last had sweet and sour pork ribs? No one reminded Dad to take his stomach medicine, and he's had stomachaches many times. If you don't come back to take care of us soon, we'll really get angry. Over these past few years, the image of me in his heart has gradually changed from mom to a nanny who's expected to serve them. I can't speak, feeling exhausted and somewhat unwilling to reply to messages, simply hung up the call directly, then blocked this number. Considering Ronan's habitually willful nature, he might change numbers again to accuse me. I simply turned on the unknown call blocking feature. The world is finally quiet, and I let out a soft sigh. Suddenly I realized my feelings toward the wolf father and son seemed to have dwindled mostly into impatience. My work continued as usual, the scope of my tour guide work gradually expanded from this small island to nearby coastal cities. I've also started preparing to establish my own travel agency for people with disabilities, specifically catering to special groups such as the deaf, blind, and those with mobility impairments. I hope they can travel without fear of discrimination or inconvenience in daily life. My sister's restaurant business is also thriving. We managed to save some money, combined with our previous savings, and made a down payment on another house. As for the old house left by my father, it was sold off, as it only reminded us of those unhappy memories. That man never treated us well. During his lifetime, he kept a mistress and child outside, funneling nearly all his money to that mother and son. The money for my sister and me to study and live came solely from scholarships, grants, and subsidies from our village, scraping by, barely making ends meet. Even on his deathbed, he didn't forget to transfer all his assets away. All he left for us sisters were debts and that dilapidated house nobody would buy. As he lay on his deathbed with his last breath, he said viciously to us sisters, "Don't blame me either. If you must blame someone, blame yourselves for being born from that wicked woman's womb." In his youth, bound by his parents' orders and too afraid to resist, he married my mother. After marriage, he vented all his resentment and bitterness onto our gentle and meek mother. Then after mother's death, he turned his anger towards us sisters. That day, my sister listened calmly to his words, then took my hand and left the hospital room without looking back. My sister patted my head and said, "It's okay, I'll take care of you." We didn't watch that man take his last breath, nor did we arrange his funeral. In the blink of an eye, 5 years have passed. The newly purchased apartment is fully furnished, with an area of less than 80 square meters, small, yet cozy. It was the first real home that my sister and I could truly call our own. On moving day, I felt indescribable excitement. My sister cooked a large table full of dishes and opened a bottle of red wine, though we couldn't finish it all between the two of us. But she said that when moving into a new home, having a sense of ceremony is still very important. I cleared the dining table and lit some candles. My sister couldn't help but tease me, who has a candlelit dinner with their own sister. I couldn't help blushing a little, but I still didn't extinguish the candles. As soon as my sister finished speaking, the doorbell rang outside. I thought it was the neighbor from next door who had greeted me earlier today. When I opened the door, I unexpectedly met Wolf's gaze. I froze for a moment. His face, once always defiant, now looked utterly haggard, with dark circles under his eyes. His right hand even leaned on a cane, apparently due to an injured leg. This pitiful state was so unlike him. For a moment, I thought I had mistaken him for someone else, until I saw Ronan standing on his left side again, and Jasper, awkward and silent, not far behind him. I don't know how they found this place, such a grand display, yet it no longer stirred any waves in my heart. I even instinctively and somewhat curiously looked behind Jasper to see if Crosby had come too, but he hadn't. 5. That man probably truly didn't care at all about my sister's coming or going. The three people outside the door remained silent, their faces equally uneasy and at a loss, as if unsure how to begin. After all, none of the three had ever bowed their heads to say a kind word to me or my sister. I watched them for a moment before reaching out to close the door. The food inside was almost cold, and it would be a shame to let my sister's cooking go to waste. Wolf suddenly spoke up, muttering somewhat awkwardly, "Ronan, say something." Ronan looked up at me. The boy's usual arrogance faded from his expression, revealing a frightened and nervous look for the first time. I'm sorry." Wolf scolded again. "Address her properly." Ronan's shoulders trembled as he lowered his head to stare at his shoes, whispering faintly, "Mom, it's been so long since he called me that, I even wonder if he knows who he's calling." Wolf reached out again, pulling him forward as if trying to push the child toward me. He himself couldn't lower his pride to say a single kind word to me, dragged the powerless child to apologize to me. I immediately stepped back, avoiding Ronan's outstretched hand. Frowning again, I signed to my sister, "Ask Wolf what he wants to do. My sister will repeat my words." A look of frustration flashed in Wolf's eyes as he spoke up before his sister could say anything. "You don't have to do this, Aurelia. We've been together for so many years. I've long since learned to understand your sign language." I almost forgot about his deceased mute white moonlight, long before knowing me. Wolf was already familiar with sign language. The elder sister looked at him. She had always been gentle and kind, but now, because of me, a trace of disgust crept into her words. "You can understand it, but have you ever really looked at it before, Wolf? It's been 5 years. Have you ever once truly respected or cared about my sister?" Wolf's expression froze abruptly. His steps toward me also halted in place. He couldn't deny that he'd always been impatient when watching my sign language. Many times when I gestured with my hands, he would directly interrupt me. "Can you write it down? It's giving me a headache." Occasionally, when annoyed, he would simply turn his head away, leaving me awkwardly frozen with my hand mid-air. Ronan learned from him. Many times when I tried to teach him, he would simply close his eyes, proudly shouting again, "Can't see, can't see. If you've got the guts, say it out loud. I promise I won't cover my ears." My embarrassment and humiliation, in their eyes, all signify their victory. Clearly, they all despise me in the same way. "And now you've come looking for me here. Perhaps it's just unfamiliar." The tool they used for jokes and teasing suddenly disappeared. Wolf hesitated for a long moment before speaking with some difficulty. "I was in the wrong. I'll be more careful in the future." It seemed like such a condescending thing to say. After speaking, he naturally turned to me. "Let's go back. It's getting late. Ronan has school tomorrow." Jasper also seemed to assume I would definitely be going back with the Wolf father and son. He stood silently behind for a long time. Seeing the situation and growing impatient, immediately stepped forward to carefully look at my sister. "Mom, let's go back together. Dad has actually been very worried about you during this time. He's been drinking heavily almost every day and has been admitted to the emergency room several times. When you return, he will surely be very happy." Jasper was clearly unaccustomed to saying such things. As he finished speaking, his face flushed slightly with unnatural redness. Who knows what gave them such a mistaken impression, thinking that my sister and I would turn back because of these few words. I raised my hand and calmly signed to Wolf, "We're over. From now on, Ronan is a child of the Crosby family, and it has nothing to do with me." The elder sister looked at Jasper, whose eyes were almost pleading, and calmly said, "You too." Just as I was about to pull my sister inside, Wolf suddenly rushed forward and grabbed my arm. I angrily tried to shake off his hand, only to see his suddenly reddened eyes and anxious expression. "I know you resent me for bumping into you and hurting your leg that day. Look, my leg is injured too, no less serious than yours. Consider this repayment. Is this enough for you now?" He anxiously rolled up his own pant leg. On his calf was revealed a long, gruesome and terrifying scar. Wolf seemed genuinely panicked, urgently explaining, "I originally wanted someone to hit me with a car too, but those cowards didn't dare, so I had to use a knife. But my wound is truly no less severe than yours, Aurelia. I'm not lying to you. Feel it if you don't believe me." He spoke firmly while forcibly gripping my hand, trying to press it onto that long wound. I gritted my teeth and exerted all my strength, yet it still took me a long while to pull my hand free. In a moment of emotional outburst, I slapped him across the face. Wolf froze completely, left with nothing but helplessness and desolation on his face. He should understand that in this world, not everything can be repaid. Just like the pain in my leg and the life I almost lost that day, they can never be transferred onto him. The countless instances of neglect and disdain I endured during those 5 years, he will never truly comprehend. That day during his race, someone deliberately pushed me into the path he was about to take, yet he couldn't bear to slow down even slightly, all because the prize for that race was the last painting his unattainable love had created before passing away. It was me, battered and bruised, who frantically crawled out of the track at the last moment like a madman. Only then did I avoid losing my life or the possibility of being left paralyzed from the collision. My life couldn't compare to a painting. That was his choice without hesitation. Wolf's voice trembled as he struggled to explain, my relationship with Althea isn't what you think, she's actually. Althea was his deceased white moonlight. My hands trembled as I raised them again, interrupting him with sign language. I never want to see you again. I don't want to hear explanations, nor do I need apologies. I just need to know that on that racetrack, it was myself who saved my own life. Aurelia, who once loved Wolf, died on that racetrack. From then on, there would be no further connection between me and Wolf, my sister, and I turned back inside, closed the door, and locked it, made a phone call to contact property security and have the people outside driven away. I took out my phone's contact list again and blocked all contact information for the Crosby family. From then on, those people and matters had nothing more to do with us. Outside the door, Wolf seemed to finally snap out of it and began knocking impatiently and unwillingly. There was almost a sob in his voice. Aurelia, Aurelia, come home with me, please, I beg you, you're all I have, truly the only one. That willful, unrestrained person who never once looked at me properly now utters such ridiculous and nauseating words. My sister and I sat down at the dining table as the noise outside grew louder. Wolf's voice kept apologizing and admitting mistakes, followed by Ronan and Jasper alternately calling, Mom. The commotion outside continued for a long time, then came the security guards' voices, and finally, it quieted down. I think I've made myself clear enough. Nor was Wolf so foolish as to not understand that my sister and I could never go back, no matter what. The person outside the door finally left. Only after a long while. Through the open window, I could still hear Ronan's shrill crying from downstairs in the neighborhood. I want mommy to come home. The sound didn't fade away until much later. I raised my wine glass and clinked it against my sister's. I signed with my hands, celebrating our new home. My elder sister smiled gently. Let's also celebrate our new beginning. Both my sister and I drank quite a lot of alcohol. I don't handle alcohol well, and ended up completely lightheaded. Just like when we were children, I threw a tantrum insisting on sleeping with my sister. In the middle of the night, I vaguely heard my sister making a phone call. My drunkenness had mostly worn off by then. Faintly, I could hear what sounded like Crosby's voice on the other end. I don't care. Come pick me up at the bar. Such words, spoken in such a vague and even somewhat coquettish tone, really didn't seem like something Crosby would say. 7. Compared to Wolf's arrogant and unrestrained demeanor, Crosby comes across as aloof and ascetic. He seems utterly indifferent to everything. In recent years, he's never spoken kindly to his sister either. His sister calmly reminded him, Crosby, we've already broken up. What I owed you, I've repaid. The sound of something shattering came through the phone, carrying an anger palpable even through the device. After a moment of chaotic noises, the man's voice returned, gentle and low. We didn't separate. Violet, you're still half asleep. The elder sister softly interrupted him. You're the one who's drunk. The voice on the other end gradually became intermittent and incoherent. Yes, I'm drunk. You should come get me. You used to always come get me. Violet, I have a heart condition. No one is looking after me when I drink. Aren't you afraid I might die? My sister's hand holding the phone trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady. I'll contact the butler for you. This is the last time. From now on, please don't contact me again. Perhaps sensing that my sister was about to hang up the phone, the voice on the other end grew urgent. Listen to me, Eden has left. I dismissed her. This time, the voice over there was clear and unambiguous, so the so-called drunkenness was nothing more than a clumsy excuse. Both he and Wolf felt that actively seeking out me and my sister was a shameful thing to do. My sister chuckled softly. So, does it have anything to do with me firing that woman? Doesn't change the fact that Crosby maintained an ambiguous relationship with his secretary for those 5 years. It's undeniable that he killed his sister's carefully rescued cat for the sake of his secretary, simply because that secretary insisted on holding the cat despite his sister's objections, then accidentally scratched the kitten's belly with her slender manicured nails. The startled kitten bared its teeth at her but didn't bite, only to be grabbed by the scruff of its neck by Crosby. Her sister tearfully begged him to put the cat down, her face streaked with tears, yet her tears only further fueled Crosby's desire to act. He had mocked her sister many times. How can someone shed endless tears over such trivial matters? It's both ridiculous and amusing. And so, the cat was flung out without hesitation amidst the sister's tear-streaked face. It hit the corner of the table and died on the spot. Crosby's voice over there gradually faded. Violet, I just didn't want the cat to hurt anyone and put you in a difficult position. I didn't know it would die from just that one fall. My sister's tone grew increasingly impatient. What exactly are you trying to say? The man's voice from over there sounded flustered and confused. All because of that stray cat we'd only had for a few days. Are you really abandoning me? He knew perfectly well that his sister's departure wasn't just because of that cat, yet he deliberately chose to play dumb. It seemed his sister had exhausted all her patience. She said indifferently, word by word, for the last time, sir, we're over, whether it's you or Jasper. 8. After a long silence from the other end, came the man's cold, unwilling chuckle. Impossible, I'll bring you back soon. My sister frowned, ignoring the voice on the other end, and hung up the phone directly under the moonlight. I watched her get out of bed, remove the SIM card from her phone, and toss it straight into the trash. It suddenly occurred to me that although I had blocked Wolf and Ronan's numbers these past few days, they kept harassing me by calling from different numbers. I simply got out of bed and picked up my phone. I took out the SIM card and threw it into the trash can as well. When I looked up again, I met my sister's gaze in the dim light. There were tears in her eyes, but her expression was resolute. I moved closer, wrapped my arms around hers, casually grabbed a tissue, and wiped away the tears at the corner of her eye. Then I said with a smile, let's go get new cards together tomorrow. Maybe there's even a discount for the second one. My sister also smiled and said, okay, so let all the past end here. At the end of October, my disability travel agency started its business. My sister's restaurant also opened its first branch. The Crosby family's two father-son pairs still frequently come around, but it's gradually affecting our lives less and less. The elder sister routinely served customers at the restaurant, ignoring their presence. As for my job in the tourism industry, from morning till night, I'm constantly in places packed with crowds. Having a few more people around me makes no difference. I just treat them as strangers. Crosby bought a villa here, but merely purchased it. It seems he never actually lived there. No one knows what he wants to do. My sister and I just bought a new house and are still paying the mortgage, so we can't just move away to avoid him. Life goes on as usual. In November, I hosted a family of 5 on vacation, 3 adults and 2 children, and took them around from morning till evening. We happened to arrive at low tide during sunset, so the family bought some beachcombing tools and enthusiastically headed into the sea. I stayed behind to watch over 2 backpacks and 2 children, letting them play in the sand around me. The mischievous boy practically rolled around in the sand several times. After getting thoroughly dirty from head to toe, he finally got up and asked me for water. I picked up the water bottle to hand it to him. Looking at his hands covered in mud, I still helped him open the bottle and brought the straw to his lips. The boy signed, thank you, to me before opening his mouth to drink, but at that very moment, a small figure suddenly darted out from behind me. Before I could react, the little boy in front of me, along with the water bottle, fell to the ground. Ronan seemed still unsatisfied. Seeing the boy trying to get up, he pounced on him and they tumbled into a scuffle. Amidst the cries and shouts, don't you have hands? Don't you have your own mother? Who said you could ask my mom to feed you water? The boy's sister tried to step forward to help, but was forcefully pushed to the ground by Ronan. I was so angry that my temples throbbed, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw Wolf standing not far away. He just stood there watching indifferently, showing no intention of stepping in to stop it. At that moment, I suddenly felt that Ronan wasn't his son, but a mad dog he deliberately raised. My rationality vanished in an instant as I reached out, grabbed Ronan, and shoved him away. Ronan hit the ground with a thud. The sand was soft. It couldn't have hurt much, but he immediately let out a sharp cry, looking at me with a face full of grief and shock. You've never hit me before. You're a bad mom. You don't want me and dad anymore. And now you're hitting me for some other bad kid. The little boy who was pushed down stood up, pulling his sister up with him, glaring at him angrily while gesturing in sign language. You're the bad child. That's why your mother abandoned you. Ronan's crying grew even more shrill. Several adults who were gathering seafood heard the commotion and rushed back. I comforted the child, apologized to the adults, waived their guide fee, and concluded today's tour. After seeing them off the beach, Ronan trailed behind me again, his shrill cries still ongoing. Unaware bystanders cast judgmental glances at me, silently condemning my heartless act of abandoning a child. Behind Ronan's tear-reddened eyes lurked a hint of triumph. He knew that because I was born mute, I had a somewhat inferiority complex and was always more afraid of losing face, so he deliberately pulled at my sleeve pitifully in front of everyone. "Mom, will you take me home?" Ignoring those gazes, I reached out and pushed his hand away. Turning back, I was about to drive home from the roadside. Wolf, who had been pretending to be a stranger standing not far away, finally approached and blocked my path. I suddenly felt utterly disgusted. It suddenly struck me as strange how I could have ever been attracted to someone like him, to achieve his own goals. Even his son is just a weapon in his hands. He raised Ronan to become what he is now. It's nothing but his disdain for the Crosby family, deliberately showing them a detestable grandson. Now he's using Ronan as that weapon, holding it against my neck. Unable to conceal my irritation, I raised my hand and warned him, "If you don't leave now, I'll call the police." Wolf stood towering over me from an uncomfortably close distance. There was a strange glint of amusement in his eyes, disgusting yet inexplicably chilling. Under the weight of that peculiar smile, a sudden, inexplicable unease took root within me. I heard him speak. "Aurelia, come back with me. You'll have to return sooner or later. You've made enough fuss. Don't waste each other's time." Psychopath. I walked past him to leave, hearing him let out a soft chuckle. "Aren't you always following your sister around? She's about to return to the capital soon. Are you really not going back?" It felt like a bucket of cold water had been suddenly poured over my head. I whirled around to face him, raising my hand in accusation. "What did you do?" Wolf seemed quite satisfied with my reaction, the amusement in his eyes deepening. "What can I do? I'm not like some fools who rush to do the dirty work themselves. Isn't it better to let others fight while you reap the rewards?" My mind was buzzing with noise. It suddenly occurred to me that Crosby has been here almost every day for the past 2 weeks. I see him almost every day. When I went to the restaurant to find my sister, he was standing not far away in an inconspicuous spot, looking at me, looking in the direction of my sister. 9. An inscrutable gaze with a faint, ambiguous smile. Back then, I just thought they were all lingering like restless spirits, wondering how much longer they'd keep playing this tedious, nauseating game of feigned affection. But now, it suddenly occurs to me, he seemed more like he was plotting something, and now, his plan is ready. I drove hurriedly to my sister's restaurant while calling her, but she wouldn't pick up. Crosby has always been extremely rational in his actions, never acting recklessly, but I didn't dare take the risk, so I called the police while driving. In late autumn, darkness falls early, and by the time I arrived at the restaurant, it was completely dark. The restaurant was brightly lit, showing no signs of closing from a distance. I couldn't see clearly if my sister was properly inside. After getting out of the car, I hurried towards the entrance, but before I could step into the front courtyard, my shoulder was suddenly grabbed from behind. The mouth opens, but no voice comes out to call for help. In that instant, I saw from afar my sister's figure inside the restaurant, serving customers as usual. Clearly, Crosby never went out of his way to trouble her. Suddenly I realized I was wrong, completely mistaken about everything. Crosby's smiling voice softly whispered in my ear, "Let's go, we'll return to Kyoto together and wait for your sister." From the corner of my eye, I saw that in his other hand was precisely my sister's phone, and my sister probably hadn't yet realized her phone was missing. Behind me, I heard Wolf's voice, "See clearly now, come back with me." But soon, his voice abruptly stopped. He saw Crosby turn around, holding a knife against me. Wolf's expression changed abruptly, his face darkening with extreme fury in an instant. "Crosby, take a good look at who you're holding. Are you fucking blind?" As he spoke, he moved to pull me away. The blade Crosby pressed against my neck lightly drew a line of blood. The man chuckled darkly and warned, "You'd better not come over." Wolf's gaze was murderous, his teeth grinding audibly, yet his steps ultimately halted in place. I wasn't afraid of Crosby's knife. I was convinced he couldn't truly harm me, but his strength was overwhelming, and my desperate struggles proved futile. Crosby dragged me away swiftly, passing by Wolf with a mocking tone. "Wolf, you never seem to understand who the real fool is. Did you really think I told you in advance that I was coming to take Violet away out of sheer kindness and stupidity, compared to attempting a kidnapping in broad daylight or a heavily guarded residential area where a screaming, resisting sister could raise alarms? Naturally, in this deserted darkness, it would be much easier for him to take away a silent, helpless me who came knocking on his door. Behind us was Wolf's furious roar. Crosby. You're asking for death. Crosby paid no further attention and took me into the car. The car arrived at his newly purchased villa, where the rooftop was a helipad with a private jet already waiting, dragged by him onto the plane. Soon everything on the ground vanished from sight. In the cabin, Crosby sat across from me, speaking softly with evident satisfaction. Don't worry, you and your sister will soon be reunited in Kyoto. Using sign language, I furiously reminded him, what you're doing is illegal. Neither my sister nor the police will let you get away with this. Crosby laughed. Oh really? If the police come, I can guarantee I won't run. But your sister loves me so much. How could she bear to call the police? What an ironic statement. I felt sorry for my sister. Even her fingers trembled slightly as she gestured. So you knew all along that my sister loved you. Crosby's eyes flickered slightly, but his tone remained indifferent. Don't play the emotional card with me. 12 years ago, she took my mother's money and left me. When she came back to me 5 years ago, it was only because of the debts your father owed. Her so-called love is nothing but using me and then abandoning me over and over again, isn't it? After much deliberation, I finally took out my phone and handed him a photo. 12 years ago, my sister and I were in a rented apartment when we encountered a fire. My hand movements paused slightly before continuing after a long moment. That fire was set by your mother's orders. Crosby's expression suddenly froze, and after a long pause, he let out a mocking laugh, thinking that making up nonsense would make me. I lowered my hand, not wanting to say more. 10, but Crosby clearly couldn't stay calm any longer, staring at me with visible irritation as he pressed further. Ran out of ideas. If something like that really happened, why didn't you just tell me from the beginning? On my phone, I slowly typed out a line. Even if I told you, what could you have done? At that time, Crosby was just a 20-year-old college student. He resented his family's control and tried every means to resist it. He took it for granted that his sister should stand by his side unconditionally, unaware of how much anger was vented on his sister in places he couldn't see, until that fire, later determined to be arson disguised as an accident, left my sister with severe facial burns, while I lay unconscious in the hospital ICU, awaiting exorbitant medical fees. The day my sister accepted the bank card from Crosby's mother and took me away to another city for treatment, I asked her, won't you say goodbye to Crosby? Maybe. My sister remained silent for a long time, and in the end could only sigh. Forget it. He can't do anything about it. I've been holding him back for too long. She still felt that she was the one who had wronged him. I withdrew my thoughts from memories, my eyes moist with tears. Crosby's face seemed to have an invisible tear. His face grew paler by the minute, yet he remained in self-deception. She's just short-sighted. After taking the money, you ended up looking like this ghostly mess. The half-spoken words abruptly stopped. Perhaps at this moment, in a flash of realization, he suddenly understood something. To me, my sister is the most beautiful woman in the world. She has the most perfect face, the most flawless features. If it weren't for that fire, she would never have needed to lie on that cold plastic surgery table. As Crosby said, she ended up looking like this monstrous version of herself, still beautiful, but like a sculpted plaster doll. First Crosby's face, then his figure, suddenly began to tremble, shaking more and more violently. Only after a long time did I hear him, as if delirious, a voice trembling with panic. No, impossible. Won't believe it. Jasper is here too. He was sitting right next to Crosby, silent, lifeless. After an exchange between me and Crosby, the boy's eyes were bloodshot, his lips trembled tightly pressed together, his palms silently clenched into fists, but he remained silent and said nothing. For many years, he felt ashamed of having a sister who was like a mother to him, vain and unscrupulous. She got pregnant with a rich second-generation's child, then took the child to demand money from him when the child was 6. That was his impression of his sister. My sister had explained it too, but he didn't believe it. I averted my gaze, looked out the window, and held back the tears in my eyes. Over the years, my sister has shed too many tears because she couldn't control herself. I thought I shouldn't cry anymore. The plane landed in Kyoto, coming to rest on the lawn of Crosby's villa not long ago. This man had intended to kidnap and imprison me, trying to force my sister to come and obediently stay by his side again. Now, he just sat there in a daze, just like Jasper, motionless. Like a snowman frozen in place by Kyoto's first snowfall outside the aircraft cabin. It seems this year's snow has come unusually early. I got up alone and left the aircraft cabin. My elder sister arrived 2 hours later. Along with them came Wolf and Ronan, as well as police cars. My sister ran towards me, her face pale and panicked, and hugged me tightly. Then she urgently comforted me, saying, "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid," as if I were still that little child who had accidentally gotten lost when I was just a few years old. I gently patted her back with my palm, silently telling her that I was fine, probably hearing their sister's voice. The two figures in the cabin, one big, one small, finally stepped out. Crosby, restrained by the police, looked at his sister from a moderate distance. "Violet," that voice seemed to suddenly shatter the last remnants of his sister's composure. Her eyes bloodshot, she rushed over and delivered a fierce slap across his face. As if unsatisfied, she raised her other hand and struck a second time, teeth clenched in fury. Her voice trembled with loathing. "Save your apologies for prison, you'll have plenty of time to say them there. I warned you, don't you dare touch my Aurelia." Crosby looked pained. "I'm sorry, I never expected that fire 12 years ago." After a brief stunned expression, my sister interrupted him with cold disgust. "It's not like I didn't tell you during these 5 years. 12 years ago, 20-year-old Crosby was powerless against the Crosby family. 5 years later, when his sister approached him again, he had become the CEO of the Crosby family and was no longer entirely controlled by them." I once witnessed my sister trying to explain, but Crosby never had the patience to listen. He interrupted her, his voice filled with hatred. "I don't want to hear your pathetic excuses and sophistry. Just the sight of your face now makes me sick to my stomach." That was a sharp knife. Many late nights when my sister couldn't sleep, she would get up and look at herself in the mirror, feeling terrified. She lived in the shadows, envying Eden's sunny and vibrant face, envying the unrestrained ambiguity between Eden and Crosby. Later, my sister never repeated those explanatory words again. Often, it seems people only become willing to calm down and truly listen to each other when it's already too late. Crosby was taken away by the police, and he confessed without denial to the charges of illegal abduction and confinement brought by my sister. As the police led him past his sister, it was the first time I saw his tears fall and heard his hoarse voice. "Eden and we never actually had anything. I just wanted to make you hurt. It was me who failed you." My sister averted her gaze. In the end, she never looked at him again. She only tightened her grip on my hand, her voice softening once more. "Come, let's go home." As we stepped out of the front courtyard, Jasper's trembling, helpless voice called out behind us, "11, Mom, can you take me back with you?" Before Jasper turned 6. It was my sister who raised him all by herself. My sister used to love him very, very much too, but now, she stopped in her tracks, turned around, and calmly replied, "This is the home you don't despise. The taxi is still waiting outside." My sister led me over and opened the rear door to get in. Ronan, who seemed frightened, remained silent the whole time, suddenly burst into tears and rushed over, desperately clutching the hem of my clothes. He was crying so hard he started hiccuping, panicked and incoherent. "I want mommy, mommy can't leave, stay with me." I reached out and slowly removed his hand. Wolf followed, looking pained, as if unsure how to begin. After a long while, he finally spoke. "Ronan is still young. Could you give us one more chance? I think I've already made myself perfectly clear to them. Now I just want to accompany my sister home." Without repeating another word, sister looked at him and said calmly, "If you also want to experience the consequences of being taken away by the police again, then keep blocking us here." Before the police officers leave, by the police car, the officers were about to take Crosby inside. Hearing this, they looked over. It was past midnight, and the snow continued to fall endlessly. Wolf's voice sounded like it had been torn open by the cold wind of the deep night. The hoarse voice murmured, "Is this really it?" I raised my hand, silently telling him, "Yes, this is it." I got into the car. Ronan wept bitterly and tried to chase after, only to be silently stopped by Wolf. The moment the car door closed, I suddenly seemed to hear Wolf's muffled sobs, faint, desperate, and full of regret, gone with the wind in an instant, or perhaps just my imagination. The taxi drove away, the villa was brightly lit outside, and I took one last glance through the rearview mirror. The police car took Crosby away, while Wolf, facing my direction, opened his mouth as if to speak, being born mute. I've always been better at reading people's lips and understanding what they're saying. It was a silent, "I'm sorry." I averted my gaze, looking at the thick layer of snow gradually accumulating on both sides of the road. The weather's getting cold, perfect for having hot pot. I looked at my sister. Before I could speak, I first heard my sister's voice. "When we get home, let's have hot pot." I froze for a moment. I couldn't help but laugh, yet my eyes turned red again. Truly, there's no one else in this world who shares my tastes so perfectly or understands my thoughts so well. I rested my head on her shoulder, and she reached out to gently stroke my hair. The taxi drove through snow and darkness, heading toward a bright future. Extra story, Wolf. After Aurelia left, for a long time, my mind was in a constant state of extreme distraction. After several consecutive incidents on the racetrack that nearly resulted in fatal crashes, I had no choice but to take a break. With my accustomed work halted, staying at home, I suddenly found myself at a loss for what to do. I didn't want to go out for entertainment, nor visit the Crosby family to see those hypocritical faces, nor do I want to take care of Ronan. Thick curtains were drawn in the room, leaving no light anywhere. Sitting in the darkness, I always feel like Aurelia is still here. She lived with me for 5 years, and later, due to an accident, gave birth to my child. I never said I would marry her, yet I never imagined she would leave one day. Like water, like air, I took it for granted that she would always be here, just as Crosby believed Violet would never leave. But they're gone, completely, never to return. One day, the nanny suddenly told me, "Young Master has changed too much lately. He hardly speaks anymore. The teacher says he seems to be developing low self-esteem at school. Every time after school, when he sees other children being picked up by their mothers, he insists on leaving alone through the back door." When I went to ask him what was wrong, I realized I hadn't paid attention to him for far too long. In such a short period of time, he appeared much thinner, and even his eyes had lost their sparkle. He sat alone in the living room, silently building blocks over and over again. It was a little castle that Aurelia had taught him to build when she was still here. After finishing the castle, he would reach out to knock it down and rebuild it again, over and over, endlessly, like a machine wound up and repeating the same fixed trajectory over and over. The nanny called him, but he ignored everyone who spoke to him. I sat beside him and called his name several times. Only when I reached out and took away 2 of his building blocks did he glance sideways, looking at me with lifeless eyes. I said, "Why have you stopped talking much lately?" He calmly asked me in return, "I just miss Mom." "Why are you pretending not to know either?" I was momentarily speechless. Aurelia is gone, and my son has become half-mute. Laughter never returned to this home again. 12. Crosby was bailed out by the Crosby family just days after entering the police station. Given the Crosby family's capabilities, this outcome was only natural, but Violet left, and even after Crosby was released from the police station, he insisted on resigning from the Crosby family. He became extremely silent, preferring to lock himself in his room, and so did Jasper. There was no more laughter in the Crosby family. On the day Crosby was taken away by the police, he said a few words to me as he passed by. Through his words, I found a document folder in his study. With all the evidence I've gathered over the years, it's finally enough to send Crosby's mother to prison. That woman stole my mother's husband when she was young, then she twisted the truth, portraying herself as the rightful wife and my mother as the mistress. After my parents divorced, my mother left alone with me and my unborn sister in her womb. Later, she gave birth to a younger sister and had her take her surname, but that woman still wasn't at ease, going to great lengths to monitor the movements of our family of 3. She caused my sister's death, then drove my mother to suffer severe nervous exhaustion, and she remains in a psychiatric hospital to this day. Until later, my father also grew tired of her and suddenly remembered my mother's virtues. My sister died, and my mother was admitted to a mental hospital. He came running out again, feigning deep remorse and affection, took me back to the Crosby family, promising to make it up to me for the rest of his life. How ridiculous. I tried every means to find evidence of that woman's crimes. What I found was never enough. Aurelia suddenly appeared in my line of sight. That rainy night was the first time I saw her. When I took her away, I really just wanted to spite Crosby. I hate Crosby's mother, and by extension, I hate Crosby too. After bringing Aurelia back, I quickly realized she was mute. Those who cannot speak always make people feel more secure and are better suited as confidants. I began occasionally sharing some of my dark, unknown thoughts with her. I detest the Crosbys, mother and son, and I loathe my father. I truly wish that one day, I could personally send them all to hell. Every time I say those things, a look of terror appears on Aurelia's face as she frantically gestures and says something to me, probably advising me not to be so extreme or something like that. Not that I can understand her anyway. Ignoring those unsightly waving hands, she was truly the most quiet and well-behaved listener. Later, I even wanted to tell her about my deceased sister and my mother in the mental hospital, but she seemed so timid. If I scared her, perhaps she would run away and no longer want to stay by my side. I suddenly realized I didn't want her to leave. I wish she could stay forever, but I can't let anyone notice that I've started caring about her, that I want to keep her, because of my dead sister, because of my insane mother, because of that woman who remains at large, watching me with covetous eyes, seeking to exploit my weaknesses. That woman had been observing Aurelia, and was greatly disappointed. Upon realizing my indifference towards her later on, Aurelia and I had Ronan. She then regarded Ronan, the grandson of the Crosby family, as a serious threat, until she realized that I had raised Ronan to be that foolish, arrogant, and rude, posing no threat whatsoever to her son and grandson. Thus, she finally lost interest in targeting Ronan. I've waited too long, far too long, so long that I dare not show the slightest affection toward anyone I care about, so long that I dare not let my son display any remarkable excellence, until this day finally arrived. That woman's son personally handed me the final straw that broke his mother's back, but she still wasn't taken away by the police, because before being arrested, she had already taken her own life at home. She had lived in luxury and wealth for too many years, utterly unable to face that prison cell filled with endless darkness and despair. My father started coming after me again. He lost his wife, and his most proud son Crosby was completely devastated. The Crosby family needs someone to take over. He is getting old, his health is deteriorating, and he no longer has the strength to manage it himself. I didn't make it difficult for him and agreed to take over the company. In the third year of taking over the company, my father was completely at ease and handed over full authority of the company to me. I accidentally misinvested in several major projects and accidentally reappointed a few key executives with ulterior motives. The company plunged into an unprecedented crisis, with several executives absconding with huge sums of money, causing the capital chain to rapidly collapse. My father was in the intensive care unit, recuperating his increasingly failing heart. With a heavy heart, I informed him about the company's situation. On the monitoring device, his heart rate began to spike rapidly. I'll tell him again. I've already compiled and submitted all the evidence of his years of keeping female students as mistresses and coercing female employees into sexual favors to both entertainment reporters and the police. The heart rate monitor started screaming frantically. I leaned close to his ear and whispered a final reminder. Listen, that's the sound of police cars coming. Beep, beep, beep. 13. His pupils dilated. His breathing grew increasingly labored and ragged, until his body began to convulse. On the wildly fluctuating heart rate monitor, the line eventually stretched into a long, flat straight line. He must be really delirious from illness. He's always been meticulous in covering his tracks. How could I possibly find any evidence? I left the hospital. As the wind blew, a chill touched my face, and I suddenly realized tears had fallen. I don't even know why I was crying. I took my sister's last painting before her death and went to the mental hospital to see my mother. That painting depicts our family of 3. It suddenly occurred to me that Aurelia also left me for good because of that painting, but that day I just concluded that the distance between the car and her was enough for her to leave on her own. The people on the scene were just using her to test me, not daring to actually take a life. As I drove closer to her, no one noticed that I eased my foot slightly off the accelerator. Then, just as she was about to leave the danger zone, I deliberately stepped on the gas again, causing the car to graze her foot. I just wanted everyone to believe that I truly didn't care about her. I was genuinely afraid that one day I'd see her turn into the image of my sister or my mother. In the psychiatric hospital, my mother, acting erratically, smashed many things. Then she suddenly leaned in and asked curiously, What happened to that little girl who used to follow you around all the time, suppressing the endless dull pain in my heart? I replied hoarsely, she's gone. My mother hugged my sister's painting and simply said, oh, ask me again. Where did you go to have fun? When are you coming back? See, even she took it for granted that when Aurelia left, it wouldn't be truly leaving me. When leaving the mental hospital, I stood in Kyoto's white snow, suddenly remembered. Aurelia's final departure back then was in the courtyard of Crosby's villa. In the early hours of the morning, there was a heavy snowfall just like this. It suddenly occurred to me that it had been far, far too long since I last saw her. I truly miss her so much, after all these years. That woman who killed my sister, that man who abandoned my mother, they're both dead. Now, I no longer need to worry about someone hurting the people I care about. Then, what if I go to see Aurelia one more time? Could there be even the slightest possibility that we might have a chance to start over? I took Ronan, who is now almost 10 years old, to that island once again. Ronan no longer plays around like he used to, and rarely speaks to me now, but when I mentioned going to the island to find Aurelia, he silently packed a large backpack of things without saying a word. I pretended not to see the scholarship certificates, awards, and competition trophies he had packed away over the years. Silently yet urgently, he wanted to tell Aurelia he was no longer that disobedient child who had disappointed Aurelia back then. We landed on the island, but was told by Aurelia's neighbor that she had gone skiing in the north. Over the past few years, her travel agency has grown significantly, opening several branches and starting to provide tour guides across the country, so it's not surprising that she went to the north. I took Ronan and flew back to the north. I went through great effort to inquire around before finally locating the ski resort where Aurelia was. By the time I arrived, it was already dark, yet there were still quite a few people at the ski resort. I went inside and searched everywhere, but couldn't find any trace of Aurelia. Feeling quite disappointed, I thought I must have come too late and she had probably already left. I searched every corner of the ski resort, then reluctantly headed outside. Just as I was nearing the exit, I suddenly heard a cheerful, laughing male voice not far behind me. Then let's postpone the wedding, head north, we'll play for a few more days. The voice was unfamiliar, yet I instinctively turned my head back, as if some premonition and instinct drove me. I turned back in the crowd and suddenly saw Aurelia's face, and the man beside her, his arm around her, glancing down at her with lowered eyes. The light was somewhat dim, yet I seemed to clearly see the indulgence and amusement in the man's eyes. For a moment, I even felt that it wasn't Aurelia. During those 5 years she spent with me, she always appeared timid and hesitant. She didn't speak much and seemed to have no particular hobbies. It feels like being forever trapped in a kind of dull and chilly gloom. I once heard Violet say that Aurelia was a cunning and playful person. Back then, I would instinctively refute that, and Violet would sigh softly and say, "You've never truly understood her." Never. At this moment years later, I seemed to suddenly catch a glimpse of the Aurelia that Violet had spoken of. I think I truly understood, in that instant, why Aurelia chose to leave. I watched as the man spoke to her with relaxed and cheerful expression, speaking with excitement. Aurelia's eyes and brows brimmed with laughter as she raised her hand to respond to him. The man also seemed delighted, casually raising both hands to swiftly and clearly reply to Aurelia in sign language. Though not mute, he naturally conversed with Aurelia, seamlessly blending speech with her signing. He willingly respected Aurelia's way of communication, learning her sign language to grow closer to her. I watched them converse as if no one else was around. After all, the wedding invitations haven't been sent out yet. We can go back later to try on the wedding dress and arrange the venue. Postponing from mid-next month to the end of next month might even allow us to catch the snow in the south, making the wedding more romantic. 14. It must have been Aurelia who suggested wanting to play for a few more days, and the man naturally found her a reason to delay her return. Aurelia signed to him with some concern. "But don't you have a competition the day after tomorrow?" The man took off her helmet-shaped hat, pulled a towel from his backpack, and gently wrapped it around her head. He replied verbally, "The competition was postponed, for 3 days." Aurelia signed with a suspicious expression. "I said I wanted to play for 3 more days. How did it just happen to be postponed for 3 days?" The man wiped her hair with a towel, his eyes filled with triumphant laughter. "Because you have the best luck. I hid among the crowd, at a distance neither too far nor too near, like a peeping Tom lurking in the shadows, watching their happiness with dark envy, until those two figures gradually moved forward and disappeared from sight. I stood there for a long, long time, then I suddenly remembered that Ronan was still by my side. He was biting his lower lip hard, still clutching that overstuffed backpack in his arms, as if he'd lost his soul. I raised my hand to call him, but he suddenly shoved my arm away and rushed ahead. I knew he was shedding tears and hated being seen by others. I hurried out after him. I saw him run into the distance and stand alone under a tree, his shoulders shaking violently. I halted my steps, only then realizing that tears had also fallen from my eyes. Our shadows stretched long by the roadside, extending into the boundless darkness. I understood then that I had finally lost her completely. Story 2, the end of the world has arrived, zombies are running amok, and natural disasters are occurring frequently. I accidentally bound myself to the Virgin system. I have to show my kind-heartedness everywhere to get points, but I'm clearly a Black Lotus. My neighbor has no food, so I cook rice for them, and it's nutritionally balanced. My neighbor's house was smashed, so I gave her my house and went to live on the rooftop myself. The zombies downstairs are howling with hunger, so I throw meat to feed them every day. The bullies who are robbing supplies come, and I welcome them into the community with a smile, feeling sorry for their hardships on the way. 3 months after the end of the world, social order has collapsed, and every corner of the world is in an anarchic state. Robbery, murder, rape, and arson may happen at any time. However, I distributed all my stockpiled food to my hungry neighbors. Eat slowly, there's still a lot in the pot. I'm short of everything in my house, but I have enough rice. I looked at my neighbors who had been hungry for several days with a pitiful expression. Seeing their emaciated appearance from hunger, I almost cried out of pity. How many days had they been hungry? A dozen neighbors were sitting in my living room. The white rice only had a little condiment sauce for flavor, but they were eating with great relish. Eat slowly. Don't choke. I saw a big brother choking on the dry rice until his face turned pale, but I pretended not to see it. An electronic voice rang in my head. The host cooking for the hungry neighbors is an act of a virgin. For each act of a virgin, rescuing one person rewards 100 points. A total of 1,500 points are obtained. Points can be exchanged for prizes in the mall. I looked at the affordable goods in the mall, and a burst of ecstasy welled up in my heart. I desperately suppressed my inner joy. The ant who was eating with relish looked at me gratefully and said while eating, "Sophia, you're so kind. Let me introduce a boyfriend to you. You're not young anymore, are you? A woman always needs a home to go to, right?" I looked at the ant with great interest. Who would want to get married in the apocalypse? What kind of person is he? The ant pointed at the man beside her and said, "What do you think of my son? His wife was bitten, and the child can't be without a mother." I waved my hand and said, "Ant, I'm almost 30 years old. I'm old and not good looking. How can I be worthy of your excellent son?" I said while holding my chin with one hand. The ant was at a loss for words and didn't dare to quarrel with me, for fear that I wouldn't give them food. What a calculating plan. If I had agreed, wouldn't all my stored food belong to them, and I would have to take care of that man. After they finished eating, they left dejectedly. I think they went to discuss how to deceive me. Not long after, the other neighbors gradually finished eating and went back to their homes. I closed the door and quickly cleaned up the messy living room. I exchanged for a supreme luxury instant noodle package in the System Mall, a cup of iced bubble milk tea to replenish the sugar for the whole day, 2 cheese-filled crispy sausages, a fully cooked egg with a crispy edge, and instant noodles with real beef brisket. The noodles were chewy and smooth. The system was afraid that my nutrition wasn't comprehensive, so it also provided a plate of lettuce with oyster sauce. Alas, an old woman who is almost 30 years old doesn't want to chagrin her stomach to keep in shape anyway. The System Mall can exchange for diet pills. The rice I gave to my neighbors just now was infested with rice weevils. I'm so kind. I was worried that they didn't have enough protein just from eating rice. I specially chose this rice that had been stored for a long time, too. Just as I finished eating and patted my bulging belly, the door of my house was knocked again. I opened the door with a smiling face, seeing my neighbors who had just left coming to my door fiercely. I asked kindly, "My dear neighbors, what can I do for you? Is there anything I can help with? We had diarrhea after eating your food. You have to give us an explanation," the leading uncle said to me fiercely. I immediately changed my expression and looked panicked. Ah, how could that be? Are you okay? I don't have any medicine at home. Should I compensate you with some money? I'll give you whatever amount you want. As I spoke, I took out my wallet, which was stuffed with green banknotes. It almost burst my wallet. A group of people were scolding me. The kitchen knife in their hands was waving wildly in front of me, but they were separated from me by an iron fence. This was the invincible protection I exchanged in the system. As long as I didn't open the door, no one could break in, or, I'll give you all the remaining dry food and canned food. You can divide it among yourselves. Seeing my sincere admission of fault, the neighbors' brows relaxed a bit, but they still didn't let it go and said, "We have to go in and move the supplies ourselves. Don't try to hide anything." It was the aunt who had tried to introduce a husband to me just now. She was holding a chubby boy in her hand. The boy was holding a lollipop, and half of the candy had melted, making it sticky. As soon as I opened the iron gate, a group of people filed in. There were more people than those who came to eat just now. It seemed that many of them were planning to cause trouble, but they didn't expect me to cooperate so much. An uncle was the first to enter my kitchen. He opened all the lockers at once, and there were full supplies in sight: oatmeal, canned food, flour, compressed biscuits, all of which were edible, and they all looked like they had the latest expiration dates. When the others saw this, they also tried to squeeze in desperately. Seeing how anxious they were, I quickly reminded them I was afraid that they didn't know where all my food was hidden. There's also some in my TV cabinet. There's some in my wardrobe too. There's some in my bookcase as well. Have you searched carefully? Are you sure there's no more food in my house? Don't be polite to me. Take it all. After all, I invited you to have a meal in the apocalypse when supplies are scarce, and it made you have diarrhea. It's all my fault. I hope you won't blame me. I'll go out to search for supplies myself, I said sarcastically, but they didn't care to talk to me. They left with the supplies in their arms, looking happy. The people who came to watch the excitement later looked indignant. People are more concerned about inequality than scarcity. They all wanted a share of the cake from me. When they asked me for food, I said with an awkward expression, "Sorry, you're late." They've emptied my house. The neighbors who came later looked at my empty house. Then they silently walked up the fire escape. After a few minutes, I heard a commotion and smashing sounds upstairs, followed by screams piercing the sky. Alas, what a sin, just for a little food. They actually fought. I've gotten used to these sounds these days. I can't fall asleep without hearing them at night. The host distributed all the supplies to the neighbors, which is an act of a virgin. 10,000 points are rewarded. 3. I opened the window to take a look at the scenery outside, but a gust of hot air rushed in. Even at night, the temperature still wouldn't drop. The zombies guarding downstairs in the community were like they had eaten a ton of preservatives. They wouldn't rot in such hot weather. They were howling downstairs all day long. I felt a little sorry for them being hungry, so I exchanged for a ton of zombie meat in the system and threw it downstairs. Zombies, don't starve yourselves. Zombies, I will definitely take care of you until I find the antidote for the zombies. Zombies, you must live well. I sat in front of the windowsill and looked at the cute zombies downstairs. A feeling of pity welled up in my heart. They used to be kind people. For example, there was a zombie aunt who played the music loudly while dancing square dance every day. Wasn't it to exercise the concentration of the children? Wasn't it to help those who had been tired all day fall asleep soundly in any environment? And that uncle who always shortchanged people when selling vegetables, wasn't it because he was worried that everyone would get sick if they ate too much and gave them 2 tails less meat? The zombies quickly ate up all the scattered meat and looked up at me one by one. The host feeding the hungry zombies is an act of a virgin. For each act of a virgin, rescuing one zombie rewards 100 points. 10,000 points are obtained. It turns out that I can earn points by feeding the zombies in the system. The zombie meat I exchanged with 1 point earned me a full 10,000 points. I made a great profit. Then why should I feed those ungrateful neighbors? I won't feed them anymore. The zombies that had eaten the meat still seemed not to have enough and were still howling downstairs. The sound of their howling attracted all the zombies within a few kilometers. After I browsed around the system mall, the garden of the community was crowded with zombies. There were curses from the neighbors upstairs. Damn it, why are there so many zombies all of a sudden? Can the door downstairs hold them back? Aw, we're going to die here. Which fool attracted the zombies? Alas, it was me who was the fool. so I threw another 10 tons of meat downstairs and directly earned tens of thousands of points. But although the things in the system mall are cheap, the item I want is very expensive. I want to get that extremely luxurious doomsday bunker. Only this thing can make me hold on until the end of the apocalypse. Looking at the doomsday bunker that requires 100 million points, I silently exchanged for a fried chicken drumstick to eat and threw the remaining bones downstairs to feed the zombies. I was so greedy. I had never lived in such a luxurious house in my life. After eating and drinking my fill, I crazily threw zombie meat downstairs to feed the zombies. 100,000 points acquired. For when I woke up in the morning, there were a series of knocking sounds at my door. When I opened the door, I saw almost everyone in the community. They were all gathered at my door, looking like beggars begging for food. I originally didn't want to feed them, but I softened my heart. Just feed them one last time. Sophia, I heard that you have a lot of stockpiled food at home. We all heard from other neighbors. Our families have been hungry for several days. There's no one left. Can you be kind and distribute your stockpiled food to everyone? I looked at the large crowd. There were at least hundreds of people. It was a bit too many. Hey, how did you know I went out to search for supplies last night? Your noses are so sharp. If you're hungry, just come to me. Why should you go through the trouble of taking the food home and cooking it? Don't you need water to cook? Wait for me at the door for a while. I said all this and immediately ran to the house pretending to cook. In fact, all the stockpiled rice had been distributed. I got a pile of expired rice and original flavor toilet water for free in the system. Looking at the fresh-looking rice, I secretly complain in my heart, why aren't there any rice weevils in this rice? My neighbors are in great need of protein. The electronic voice of the system rang out. Then I'll randomly send a few cockroaches. I nodded in satisfaction. I was worried that they would get constipated if they only ate rice and no vegetables, so I threw a whole big bag of green juice powder into the pot. It was that thing that was very popular before and sold by the Japanese. With it, the rice was nutritionally complete. Oh, it still lacked some oil. I added a little gutter oil that I got for free. Half an hour later, I pushed the whole pot of rice out with a cart. After all, there were too many of them, and my house couldn't hold them. They actually brought their own lunch boxes. When they saw me coming, they rushed to scoop up the rice. Before I could close the door, the rice bucket fell straight off the cart. A group of people didn't care that it had been stepped on. They picked it up and ate it directly. The lunch boxes were in vain. I smiled and looked at this group of people. I still wanted them to live a little longer. The moment I closed the door, I met the gaze of a girl. I gave her a look that said, goodbye and don't come back. She looked at me in horror and then lowered her head to avoid my gaze. She stood timidly behind the crowd, seemingly unable to get a bite to eat. I will always remember this face. 5. When I opened the community group chat, there were overwhelming expressions of gratitude towards me, even though what I gave them was just a meal of unpalatable rice. They were all deeply grateful to me. Look, human nature is really ugly. They weren't like this in my previous life. In my previous life, I hid in my house with the door locked, but they insisted that I hand over my stockpiled food and loudly accused me of being selfish. However, no matter how solid the anti-theft door was, it couldn't stop a group of villains who wanted to divide up my supplies. They robbed me of all my food one by one, and in the end, they didn't spare me either. That seemingly kind aunt stewed my abdominal meat without adding any spices. That seemingly upright big brother roasted my thigh meat and sprinkled some salt and pepper on it. That seemingly pitiful little boy kicked my head downstairs like a ball, and the girl who couldn't get any food just now was the one who leaked the news that I had stockpiled food. I died so miserably in my previous life. Even though I knew that human nature was lost in the apocalypse, I couldn't swallow my anger, but I must avenge this. The zombies downstairs were howling more and more frequently. The smell of people in the community building was always something that attracted them. My stomach started to growl. I exchanged for a breakfast in the system mall, a bowl of lean meat and rice noodle porridge, a serving of egg, lean meat, and corn sausage. The system also kindly gave me a serving of chili sauce that could kill people and pickled mustard tuber. I drank the steaming porridge and ate the fragrant and soft rice noodles. The life in the apocalypse was so full of flavor. Just as I finished cleaning up the dishes, the doorbell rang again. Even with the best of tempers, I found them extremely annoying. These people have been taking advantage of me lately, squeezing me dry. Anyway, in their eyes, I'm a great saint, a savior. As long as I'm around, the people in the community can survive. I opened the anti-theft door, and there stood a mother and daughter at the door. In my past life, this woman picked up my foot. She pleaded weakly. My house has been taken over by a group of men. Can you take in my daughter and me? Sophia, I know you're a kind person. I'm begging you, we're homeless now. Kind person often means someone who's easy to bully. Anyone who has eaten human flesh is a demon, and here these two demons were, pretending to be pitiful in front of me. It was ridiculous. Sure, how could a good Samaritan like me refuse someone's request? I welcomed them into the house with a smile, then walked out of the small rented room myself. The woman was surprised to see me leave and asked, "Where are you going?" I turned back and smiled at her, saying, "The house can't fit so many people. I'll just make do on the rooftop." The woman didn't say anything more. Before I went upstairs, I heard a loud door slam. Humph. She sure closed the door with a sense of entitlement. 6. From the rooftop, I could see far into the distance. What caught my attention, though, were waves of zombies heading towards our community. Roaring sounds came from all directions, as if they knew I would feed them here. These cute little zombies must be starving. Mom's going to give you some meat now. With a grand sweep of my arm, I threw tons of zombie meat downstairs. These were raw materials overstock in a food processing factory, repurposed by the system. As the meat rained down, the zombies opened their mouths and devoured it hungrily. Host has completed the task. 1 million points have been credited to your account. Our building had long been surrounded by zombies with no way out, yet they easily believed my lie that I could go out to search for supplies. How ridiculous. Even more strangely, they never doubted why none of the zombies could break through that door, despite it being just an ordinary iron gate. The residents of other buildings had long fallen victim to the zombies. In this huge community, only our building still housed so many survivors. The door had never been breached because, out of my concern that my neighbors might be eaten by zombies, I installed an unbreakable lock on the very first day of the apocalypse. I loved my neighbors so much, to the extent of giving my all for them. So of course I didn't want them to suffer even a bit. Since the first day of the apocalypse, none of them had stepped outside, surviving on the food stored in their homes. Later, when everyone ran out of food, that little white lotus did exactly as she did in my past life. She stood up and tagged me in the group chat. "Sophia, I saw you buy a lot of food a few days ago. Can you share some with the neighbors? We're all neighbors and have known each other for so long. There are elderly people and children here. How can you bear to let them starve to death while you live it up?" Before I could reply, a group of people stormed to my door, but this time, I didn't resist desperately as I did in my past life. Instead, I greeted them with a smile and even asked them kindly what dishes they liked. Did they want steamed buns or stuffed buns, noodles or instant noodles, white rice or millet porridge? No matter how picky my neighbors were, I satisfied their every request. When it came to the white lotus, I said apologetically, "Sorry, I gave all the good stuff to the elderly and children. You'll have to make do with this." I handed her a hard, unleavened bun. On my way upstairs, I saw the white lotus sitting pitifully on the stairs. Her clothes were torn to shreds, her hair hung in a messy tangle, and she was gnawing on a fragrant compressed biscuit. When she saw me, she latched onto me like a lifeline. She grabbed the hem of my pants. "Sophia, please save me. I don't want to be tortured anymore." "Sophia, you're the kindest person in our building." She had quite a grip. I couldn't move at all. I turned back and gave her a cold glare. If looks could kill, she'd be hacked to pieces. I kicked her hand away with my other foot and stomped on it hard. Scram! As soon as the word left my mouth, she burst into tears from the pain. Just looking at her face made me angrier. I grabbed the railing and gave her a hard kick, sending her tumbling downstairs. The system taunted. "So cruel, being unfriendly to survivors. Deduct 1 point." Hearing the system's fake warning, I couldn't help but laugh. I hadn't walked a few steps when I heard the white lotus struggling downstairs. "No, don't touch me. Why are you doing this to me?" Her cries echoed through the air. "Yeah, why did you suggest in my past life that everyone eat me?" Remembering her ferocious face as she casually said, "Such a selfish woman, why don't we just eat her? We can have a good meal." With that in mind, I pinched my voice and shouted downstairs, "Can you spare me a piece of meat? I don't eat much, just 2 tails will do." There was dead silence downstairs. but I heard the sound of dragging. It was so amusing to watch these hypocritical neighbors kill and cannibalize each other in the name of survival. This was far more interesting than listening to their gossip. The temperature in the stairwell was scorching. I broke into a sweat after just a few steps. When I reached the rooftop, as expected, it was empty. I exchanged some items from the system: an unbreakable lock, a large tent with built-in temperature control, a soft and comfortable makeshift bed, a leather sofa, a small fridge, a miniature drone with a camera. I lay on the sofa, holding a cold drink in my hand. On the small wooden table was my tablet, showing the live feed of my neighbors downstairs. I always kept a close eye on their fate. When it was time for meals, all the neighbors in the building would show up at my old door on time, but I had already removed the lock from my previous place, so they just kicked the door open with ease. The mother and daughter appeared pitifully in front of the crowd. In a weak voice, they said to the starving people, "Sophia gave me her house, but there's no food in it at all." 7. The mother and daughter met a tragic end. They were hacked to death with a kitchen knife on the spot and then eaten, just like what happened to me in my past life. I watched the bloody scene coldly, my heart unmoved. Scenes like this were all too common in the apocalypse. I'd rather feed the zombies than give those ungrateful people any food. After feeding them rice for so long, they took it for granted that the food should be theirs, not mine. When they came to take my supplies yesterday, they didn't even consider leaving me a crumb. Even though I've acted like a saint, they don't know the meaning of gratitude. Why should I be generous to such ungrateful wretches? I'm nothing more than a slave who provides them with food. Once I can no longer supply them with food, I'll cease to be their savior and become the source of their misery. If I had known I could earn points by feeding zombies, I wouldn't have wasted all that food. I spent thousands stockpiling those supplies. Not long after I lay down, the iron gate of the rooftop was slammed violently. The bang-bang noise irritated me to no end. I got up and walked over to them. Seeing me, their ferocious expressions turned ingratiating. "Sophia, why did you move up here? Isn't it time for dinner?" The axe in the big brother's hand was still stained with blood. The blood dripped onto the concrete floor, giving off a strong smell of blood. "Didn't I give you all my supplies?" I asked gently. They quickly realized I wouldn't give them any more food and immediately changed their tune. "What do you mean? Are you just going to abandon us? Or did you hide all the supplies you found up here? Open the door right now and let us check if you're hoarding supplies." The righteous property manager uncle shouted, brandishing a wooden stick. Hearing the roars of the zombies downstairs, I sneered and asked, "With so many zombies down there, do you really think I went out to find supplies by myself?" Amid their confusion, I conjured up a chocolate ice cream out of thin air. In this sweltering weather, cold treats like ice cream were highly sought after. I took bite after bite of the ice cream, and they stared at it, practically drooling. Unfortunately, it was too hot. Before I could finish much of it, the ice cream started to melt, and a large chunk fell to the ground. I looked at the melting ice cream on the ground with a pained expression. The sun was blazing, and standing in the scorching heat, my clothes were soaked through. When I looked down, I realized that the men could see the outline of my bra through my wet shirt. I met their lustful gazes. I exchanged for a temperature-controlled small bathtub from the system mall, right in front of all of them. I started taking off my clothes one by one. Amid their shouts of "shameless," I sat down in the cool water of the bathtub. The bathtub came with a complimentary sunshade. How thoughtful. It must be infuriating for them to see a beautiful woman flaunting her body right in front of them while they couldn't touch her. These people were on the verge of starving, yet they still had the energy to lust after me. I was truly impressed. So cool and refreshing, the cold water glided over my skin, quickly dissipating the heat from my body. The men stared at me with desire, while the women looked on with envy. Angrily, they raised their sledgehammers and axes and started pounding on the iron gate. The women, unable to bear the sight, turned and walked away. Were they jealous of my figure? I watched with a smile as they exhausted themselves trying to break the lock. They collapsed on the hot ground, gasping for breath. Then, I said coquettishly to the nearest man, "It's so hot, I really wish you could join me for a bath." Big brother, provoked by my words, he kicked the already shaky iron gate in frustration. In the end, they left empty-handed. They always seemed so energetic. Clearly, they weren't hungry enough yet. 8. Living on the rooftop was indeed much more peaceful than staying in my old place. After realizing I was on the rooftop and that they couldn't break through the iron gate, they gave up. No one came banging on my door every day asking for food. I fed the zombies. Tons of meat several times a day, watching my points skyrocket by millions, but I was still far from reaching the goal of getting the shelter I wanted. It has been detected that the host is maliciously farming points. The daily point cap for the host is set at 1 million and will not be lifted. The system's electronic voice rang out, sending a chill through me despite the sweltering heat. How heartless it was. I pleaded with it to be more lenient, but it went silent, so I picked up my tablet to watch the drama unfolding downstairs. A girl living on the top floor had hoarded a lot of food. She had been hiding in her apartment, pretending no one was home, but the smell of her cooking instant noodles gave her away. On the screen, I saw a group of men, each holding a fire axe. They furiously hacked at her impenetrable anti-theft door. The girl inside remained calm at first. She thought her home was a fortress, having reinforced the doors and windows with bulletproof glass, but she overlooked one crucial thing: the walls. A burly man swung a sledgehammer and, after less than 10 minutes of relentless pounding, smashed a hole through the wall. The girl, who had been composed before, panicked. She considered jumping out the window, but there was a sea of zombies below. As the men were about to break in, she finally chose to leap out the window. She'd rather be torn apart by zombies than be tortured to death by these hungry wolves. After all, she was beautiful and had an alluring figure. If those lust-crazed men got their hands on her, she'd probably suffer a fate worse than death. Just as she was about to be devoured by the zombies, I saved her. The system had all sorts of strange items. It cost me 100 points, but I earned 10,000 in return. After all, saving someone from a dire situation was a noble deed. Besides, she was easy on the eyes, so I decided to help, but the main reason was that she had helped me in the past. I'm the kind of person who remembers kindness. She collected my remains that those people had thrown outside, essentially giving me a proper burial. Maybe it was because I lived next door and the stench of my decaying body bothered her. Still, I was grateful to her. I remembered when my soul was floating in midair. She was trembling as she picked up my head. She squinted and placed it in a bag, then carried my body to the rooftop and tried to burn it in an incense burner. Although she couldn't turn me to ash, I still appreciated her efforts. Then my soul traveled back in time, and I was reborn in this life. She also came to me and told me to stockpile supplies. With all the preparations she made, she must be a reborn person too. She tried to convince other girls to pool their money and move away from this place, but no one believed her. Even her family thought she was crazy. As a fellow reborn person, I was the only one who listened and stocked up, but we were all ordinary wage earners. Even with loans, we couldn't afford much, so she could only move to the top floor and reinforce her rented apartment. The beautiful woman's name was Charlotte. She had a face like that of a fox spirit, and at first glance, she exuded the air of a cold and glamorous mercy sister. One look at her and I was smitten, bombarding her with questions about whether she was hungry or thirsty. She was clearly taken aback by me, constantly pushing me away and saying she didn't need anything while thanking me for saving her in such a mysterious way. Watching the people in the scene revel in their spoils, I curiously asked, "Charlotte, do you want to see them turn on each other, or get eaten by the zombies?" Charlotte thought for a moment and said softly, "I'd rather see the despair on their faces after all their supplies are taken away. So ruthless." I liked that, so I exchanged for a spatial ring and gathered all the zombies within a 10-kilometer radius. Without the barrier of zombies, the survivors hiding nearby would soon set their sights on this community, whether as a place to scavenge for supplies or as a base for their group. The community's walls still provided some resistance against the zombies. Living here was safer than being out in the open. 9. Sure enough, Charlotte revealed to me that she was reborn. She said with a worried look that she couldn't get in touch with her family now. Although she was extremely worried about her family's situation, she had no way to go out and look for them. She seemed like a delicate girl. After all, the distance was quite far. As we talked, to her surprise, I also told her about my system. She said, "It won't be long before a group of evil forces arrives here. They will commit all kinds of atrocities here, capturing men as slaves and using women as tools to satisfy their lust." On the 5th day after moving to the rooftop, a large group of survivors appeared. I wanted to use them to avenge my past life enemies. I didn't want to get my hands dirty with blood. Most importantly, if I killed people for no reason, the system would deduct my points. It seemed that revenge for past life grievances wasn't allowed, but revenge in this life was. I hadn't removed the lock downstairs yet. No matter how much they smashed and hit, they couldn't break through that door. The leading man, in particular, seemed like a paranoia, determined to break the lock, so they rammed the door with a large bus, reversing, accelerating, and crashing. The intense crashing sounds rose and fell in tandem with my heartbeat. Amid their anger, I opened the door. Dozens of people got off the bus, all young men and women, but there were also a few older people, and they even had 2 dogs with them. Sorry, everyone, I live on the rooftop, so it took me a while to get down here. I explained why I was slow to open the door, and they didn't say anything. An electronic voice rang in my head. Rescuing survivors rewards 1 million points. The daily point cap remains at 1 million. I had been farming points too aggressively some time ago, so the system had set a daily limit on the points I could earn. I was at least 2 months away from being able to exchange for the shelter. I had to be extremely cautious during these 2 months. I looked at the leading man. He was dirty, with dark, tan skin. His long clothes were stained with fresh blood. He looked to be in his early 30s, with a muscular build. When he took off his mask, a face with delicate features was revealed. Even his dark skin couldn't hide his handsomeness. He was exactly my type, according to the plot of novels. When burly men appeared downstairs in the community, the young and beautiful girls would be in trouble. So, before he could reach me, I threw myself at him in front of everyone's surprised eyes. Brother, you're so handsome. I like you. I looked at him like a lovesick fool, and he seemed a bit embarrassed by my gaze, so I gave him my most flirtatious looks, my eyes practically oozing charm. Brother, you must be tired from the journey, right? I asked with concern. He nodded. Silently, his expression stern and imposing, he scanned the people who had come downstairs to check the situation, then said to a young man beside him, "Search every corner of all 33 floors of the building. Half of you come with me to search from the rooftop down, and the other half go with him to search from the bottom up." Soon, 2 teams of people, along with the 2 dogs, hurried upstairs. I followed the handsome guy up as well, afraid that he would discover Charlotte hiding on the rooftop. In this world, the situation for beautiful girls was extremely difficult. I dashed up to the rooftop, hoping to shake off the handsome guy and warn Charlotte, but he had as much stamina as I did and even walked ahead of me. When we reached the rooftop, just as I was thinking about how to get him away, he said, "It's so hot, no one would stay here, let's go down." The first room they searched on the way down was Charlotte's. He went in and checked carefully. Soon, he came out with a dark expression, looking even angrier than before, and didn't say a word. No one in the entire team dared to utter a sound. After hours of a thorough search, all the survivors were brought before him. His subordinates called him Tobias. He took a quick look around, grabbed some food, then pulled me into a room that looked relatively clean and claimed it as his own. Tobias plopped down on the sofa, biting into a compressed biscuit. There was only half a bottle of water left in his hand. He sipped it slowly, as if cherishing every drop. I stood beside him, gently massaging his back. He remained silent with a cold expression. By the time he finally finished the biscuit, my hands were sore from massaging. Suddenly, he grabbed my hand, then covered my lips with his foul, smelling mouth and roughly tore at my clothes. Just as he was about to go further, I pressed down on his restless body and said softly, "I like things clean." Even though I said it so gently, he still looked annoyed. I couldn't really blame him. In such a dry climate, to survive, people resorted to drinking filtered urine and dirty water from toilets, with no water to spare for drinking. Who had the luxury of taking a bath? Just before he could get angry, a water ball suddenly appeared in my palm. His angry expression turned to surprise, then to joy. As I expected, he lunged at my hand and greedily drank the cool, sweet water. He drank a full liter of water. After quenching his thirst, he simply cleaned himself up in the bedroom. After washing the dirt off his face, he looked even more handsome, but his quick, tempered nature was really hard to tolerate. But it didn't matter. I was confident I could tame him. 10. He lay limply on the bed, his hands still lingering on my smooth body, hugging me tightly as if I were a precious treasure. The red stains on the bed were glaring, and his stomach growled loudly. "Sophia, how can you conjure so much water? Is there really such a thing as supernatural abilities like in the legends?" In fact, the water was exchanged from the system mall, but I played along with his assumption. "Yes, I have water, based supernatural abilities, so I can take a bath every day. When I turned around, the ring on my hand caught his attention. This is a spatial ring, I told him before he could ask. There were tears glistening in his eyes, and his voice was choked with emotion. You're telling me about this precious thing just like that? I nestled my head in his chest and smiled. I'm yours now, how could I hold anything back? My hands caressed his sunken stomach from hunger. What do you want to eat? I have a lot of delicious food in my space, but I can only share it with you. If I give it to others, there won't be enough. I looked up at him with innocent eyes. Gosh, he was so handsome, the kind of handsome that exuded masculinity. He looked torn, unable to decide what he wanted to eat for a long time. So I set up a table full of spicy hot pot in the room for him. Well, in 45 degrees Celsius weather, without air conditioning or fans, I made him eat spicy hot pot, but he looked delighted and hugged my waist tightly. How did you know I love hot pot the most? The strong aroma of the hot pot was overpowered by the stench drifting in from outside, so the guys searching the building had no idea that their leader was enjoying hot pot in the room. They thought he was just working hard for the future of humanity. I watched him eat happily, even though his face was flushed and he seemed on the verge of heatstroke. After swallowing a slice of beef roll, he asked me, how did you awaken your abilities? Was it through zombie crystal cores? Yeah, that's how it was written in novels, so I had to fudge it. But not everyone can awaken their abilities. I remembered that when the zombie outbreak first started, a few idiots went to dig out the brains of zombies, although they did find something that looked like a crystal core. It stank horribly. Just one whiff was enough to make you vomit for 3 days and 3 nights. Eating it would only make you feel sick, with no other benefits. However, I was looking forward to the sight of those idiots forcing themselves to eat that disgusting thing in the hope of awakening their abilities. It was sure to be hilarious. Tobias quickly looked disappointed. No wonder so many zombies suddenly disappeared. They were killed for their crystal cores. 11. Just as I finished cleaning up the hot pot, a group of his men came downstairs with the supplies they had collected. The rest of the people were keeping watch over the captured survivors on the first floor. One of the men said, Tobias, there aren't many young women in the whole building. It's all old ladies and grannies. I knew exactly what they were after, so I joked, if there are no women, why not go for men? Tobias's lips twitched slightly at my words, but he managed to hold back his laughter. One of the men pointed at me angrily and cursed, you shameless woman, that guy is a slut who sleeps around with anyone. Don't be fooled by him. The property manager uncle chimed in triumphantly. She has a rose tattoo on her chest. All the men in the building have seen her naked. This woman is definitely not pure. Hearing this, I immediately perked up and started crying on cue. Tobias. They peeked at me while I was taking a bath. I was still a virgin, sensing the tense situation. One of the men suddenly had an idea and his eyes lit up. This woman has strange powers. She can conjure food out of thin air. As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes turned to me. Tobias stepped forward. So what? Those things belong to her. What does it have to do with you? The property manager uncle persisted. She hoards food for herself while letting the neighbors starve in the building. She's so heartless. In these special times, food should be shared with everyone. Tobias sneered coldly and pointed at the supplies in the room. Then don't you have any supplies? Don't worry, I'll take your advice and pool all the supplies together for distribution according to need, so no one starves to death. The property manager uncle's face burned with embarrassment. From his own words, the vulnerable people who had been worried about being bullied finally let out a sigh of relief. They seemed afraid that Tobias would kill them, but his words made it seem like he had no such intention. So a thin old man mustered up the courage to crawl up to Tobias and said pitifully, young man, you're a good person. These beasts are not human. They raped my granddaughter, imprisoned her, and threw her to the zombies after she died. She didn't even have a proper burial. With that, the old man burst into tears. This girl is a kind-hearted one. She gave us food when we were starving, or we wouldn't have survived this long. The old man was referring to me. Tobias looked at me in confusion, seeking confirmation. The young and pretty girls in the building were all captured by them. I only found out about it later. I explained what Charlotte had told me. Just hearing her description made me feel terrified. When Tobias heard my words, tears welled up in his eyes, but he held them back. His fists were clenched tightly. I came here to find my sister, but it seems I was too late, he said, his voice choking with emotion. I didn't bother to ask how old his sister was, it took him a while to compose himself. And then he ordered his men to arrest all these villains. In fact, there was nowhere for them to run, dig out their eyes for peeking at my wife while she was bathing, confiscate their tools for harming innocent girls. As for why not kill them, death would be too easy for them, dying would be an end to their suffering, living in this apocalypse was the real eternal torment. With him, why? I was in a great mood. I instinctively leaned against Tobias's shoulder. Why didn't he seem like a bad guy at all? He looked at those men coldly. And I also stared intently at how they pleaded and how desperate they became. Then, screams pierced the sky. I saw the bloody parts of those men thrown aside, followed by their testicles. The dogs that smelled the blood came running and gobbled them up in one bite. I watched the entire brutal scene calmly. Late at night, when I was in bed, embracing Tobias for some intimate exercise, heart-wrenching screams of men came from the next room. Too bad I couldn't use the drone to watch. 12. When Tobias woke up the next day, he looked extremely tired. I thoughtfully prepared a plate of scrambled eggs with Chinese chives and steamed oysters with garlic for him. Sure enough, after eating fresh food, he seemed to be in much better spirits. Despite his exhaustion, Tobias set out early to search for zombie crystal cores. Before he left, he gave me repeated warnings. Wife, don't let anyone in until I get back. Was this handsome guy really so innocent? He was also worried that I would be retaliated against by the residents of the building. So he warned everyone that if a single hair on my head was harmed, he would hunt them down and chop them to pieces. Everyone had witnessed his cruelty, but I couldn't understand why he could be so innocent yet so ruthless at the same time. When I got back to the rooftop, Charlotte was watching the show on the drone's screen. She looked at me suspiciously and had a puzzled expression. You have a system. Why are you getting close to those stinky men? The leader of the bullies is really handsome. I couldn't resist. I replied innocently. She gave me a disdainful look and continued, the bully in our past life was a middle-aged greasy man. He was really ugly. As she said this, she probably remembered the past, and the corners of her mouth trembled. She tried her best to hold back her tears. Since he's not the one from our past life, I'll just keep an eye on him for now, I said as I touched the cold gem on the ring. Charlotte was also wearing the same ring. I left enough survival supplies for her. Before I get the doomsday shelter, I have to make sure she stays here every time she remembers her past life experiences. She breaks down and cries. The beautiful woman with tears on her face makes me feel so sorry for her. Since all the zombies within a 10-kilometer radius were in my space, Tobias went a long way to find zombies. There were a lot of obstacles on the way, and it was impossible to drive smoothly. They went out on shared bicycles. The men whose eyes were gouged out were locked in a room. Their clothes were stripped off, and their eyes were covered with gauze. They were tortured for a long time last night. When they got up in the morning, there was excrement all over the place. Charlotte said she watched the men being tortured for a long time last night, and the resentment she had from being tortured to death in her past life dissipated a lot. She lived much longer than me in her past life. After the people in this building ate me, they remembered that I was pretty. They looked at my pale and terrifying head with pity and gnawed on my flesh. Before long, the homes of all the young girls were broken into. They were captured and imprisoned, with their clothes stripped off, having no dignity at all. Later, when the bullies came, that group of people handed over all the girls just to save their own miserable lives. She was shaking all over as she recalled the past. I hugged her and told her to stop thinking about it. In this life, I didn't know about these things, otherwise, I would have stopped them. As a girl, I can't bear to see these things. Charlotte cried in my arms for a while, and then she handed me the tablet. She was afraid I had nothing to watch, so she saved the video. She said I should also let go of the resentment from my past life. I could see one of the guys who had smeared me with dirt at the beginning. He was being tortured and was crying out in pain, but he could only endure the humiliation, or the whip would lash at him. But his body was already covered in wounds from the whipping. The wounds were soaked in sweat, and the stinging pain was intense. I saw his facial features curl up. I couldn't tell if he was feeling pleasure or pain. This time, I wanted them to truly experience what despair was. Remembered those disgusting men asking the victimized girls, "Is it enjoyable?" I also wanted to run over and ask. So, I went into that room. There were two old men guarding the door, the people Tobias brought. I leaned against the door and my gaze fell on the miserable stinky men. You were screaming so loudly last night, was it enjoyable? After I said that, I saw all of their faces turn red. Then, they flew into a rage and rushed towards me. They were cursing me as a bitch, but they were like headless flies, crashing into several people in the room, and soon they started fighting each other. The wounds on their bodies were horrifying, and their dirty bodies were covered in excrement. I felt so disgusted that I left soon. Before I left, I gave the two old men a bottle of mineral water. They looked at me with gratitude and said, "Thank you, miss. In this world, a bottle of clean water is worth far more than gold. Water can sustain life, but gold can't." 13. Charlotte controlled the drone and was looking everywhere for the man who had harmed her in her past life. I saw Tobias riding a bicycle under the scorching sun on her screen. He was holding an axe and frantically slashing one zombie after another. After killing them, he dug for things in their heads. Charlotte was so scared by the bloody scene that she controlled the drone and moved away from them. She muttered, "It's so scary. I've searched all the schools, but I can't find that person." Charlotte said as she rubbed her eyes, "Is he a teacher?" She nodded. "Damn scumbag." When Tobias came back, it was already getting dark. When he returned, his long coat was soaked in sweat. He had found a lot of supplies and also brought back a large number of zombie crystal cores. As soon as he caught his breath, he wanted to swallow the crystal cores immediately. Just as he was about to stuff the bloody crystal cores into his mouth, I stopped him. Under his puzzled gaze, "I washed that thing with water." I explained that the blood of the zombies had a virus, and if he ate it by mistake, he would mutate. Just in case, I threw them into the pot and boiled them for several minutes. I don't know why, but I couldn't bear to let him eat that disgusting thing. I didn't dare to say that I was lying to him. I conjured up a piece of bread and dipped it in Lao Gan Ma. I wrapped the crystal core in the bread and asked him to eat it in one bite. He happily stroked my head and said, "My wife, are you feeling sorry for me?" I couldn't figure out his mood swings. One moment he was like a cold and domineering president, and the other moment he was like a simple and easily deceived little boy. He distributed all the supplies he found to the brothers in the team and only kept a few compressed biscuits for himself. The reason was that he could eat mine, and treating the team members harshly wasn't good for him. Where there is oppression, there is resistance. As soon as he ate the crystal core, he quickly became burning hot all over. After spinning around a few times, he fell onto the bed and fainted. 14. He was unconscious for a full 3 days and nights. He had a high fever that wouldn't go away during that time. In his daze, he kept calling, "Jia, Jia." Maybe it was some vixen. It made me so jealous. The guy who was closest to him almost killed me when he saw his state, because he had always opposed Tobias eating that thing to get supernatural abilities. He also knew that I was lying. He always thought that this thing was very dangerous, and it was hard to say if he would mutate after eating it. If it weren't for my eloquent mouth, I would have been killed already. But during these 3 days, everyone was resting in the building and didn't go anywhere. When Tobias woke up, he was covered in sweat. In my confusion, he tried to channel his inner energy. Then, a gust of wind suddenly appeared in his palm. Was this a real supernatural ability? I quickly called the system. I wondered if I should also get one. The electronic voice of the system rang out. "I only bind to survivors without supernatural abilities. If you get supernatural abilities, I'll leave." "Why are you like this? You already have me. You still want to get supernatural abilities. Do you want me to live or not?" The system continued to explain. "The proportion of reborn people is 1 in 10 million. There are less than 1,000 reborn people in the whole world. The proportion of people who can bind to the system is even lower. There are probably less than 50 people in the world. The probability of getting supernatural abilities is much higher, 1 in 10,000. I thought about it. Charlotte and I were reborn, and Tobias had obtained supernatural abilities. Was it really possible to meet such low probability reborn people? What will happen to those who can't get supernatural abilities? Don't worry, they won't die. Oh, that's why I saw so many people eating crystal cores in my past life. It turned out that those who ate them were the unlucky ones, so it had no effect. Alas, Tobias now regarded me as a precious treasure. He blew a cold gust of wind on me and said gently, "Wife, I'll cool you down." His good brother was completely stunned. He never thought that he could really get supernatural abilities. With a tangled expression on his face, he slowly left the room. It was just the two of us again. Should I keep lying to him? If I explain now, will he kill me in a fit of anger? After all, I lied to him. I can't afford to provoke someone with supernatural abilities. He could throw me into the horde of zombies with a tornado. He kept calling me wife affectionately. When he found out the truth, he would probably be more heartless than anyone else. I'm so scared. I tentatively asked, Tobias, if I hid something from you, would you be angry with me? He nodded and said, I hate it when people deceive me the most. Seeing my stunned expression, he smiled and added, but I won't care about small things. So, is the thing about me lying to him about eating the crystal core a small thing, and I'm hiding a beautiful woman? After all, they had been searching everywhere for young and beautiful girls. I know exactly what they want. Sure enough, I heard the bed shaking and a girl moaning from the next room. It was probably the people they brought. I must not let this group of people find out about Charlotte's existence, or her nightmare will repeat itself. I suppressed the unease in my heart and begged the system to lift the cap on earning points. The system flatly refused. No way, no way. I looked at my more than 30 million points and felt like crying. I still have to wait more than 70 days to exchange for the Doomsday Bunker, and I have to take care of Tobias and Charlotte's food and drinks, although it doesn't cost much, but I can't exchange for it if I'm even 1 point short. Can I borrow your spatial ring? I looked at him in confusion. It takes a lot of effort for the brothers to carry the supplies. With this thing, it will be much easier. Don't worry, I won't take your things randomly. I readily took off the ring and put it on his hand. The ring quickly adjusted to fit his finger size. He kissed my forehead and said, Thank you, wife. Then, I briefly taught him how to use it and told him not to take out all the things in the space at once. After all, there were a lot of zombies in it. I didn't know exactly how many there were anyway. If they were released, everyone would die. He agreed without asking why. 15 zombies soon appeared near the community again, but the number was not as large as before. But at least they didn't have to go so far to find crystal cores. When the brothers under Tobias saw that he had obtained supernatural abilities, they worked even harder. They also hoped that they would be lucky enough to get supernatural abilities. The brother who almost killed me that day was Trevor. He obtained the supernatural ability of great strength as soon as he ate the crystal core. He didn't even go into a coma for 3 days. He could lift a car with one hand. This made the people who hadn't eaten the crystal cores even more excited. I sat under the cool awning and watched them killing zombies with envy. I felt so sorry for the zombies being killed. Tobias didn't hide it at all. He put the supplies into the spatial ring in front of all his brothers. I took a sip of the cold drink, which was extremely refreshing in this hot weather. Even though I was sitting in the tent with temperature control, I still felt very hot all over. When he came back, he took out the supplies and openly handed the ring back to me. I took the ring and put it back on my finger. When I went out today, I saw other survivors, Tobias said casually. He quickly led his brothers to block the gate of the community. They also moved a lot of furniture to block the door of the building. After I unlocked the invincible lock, I didn't put it back. It's so troublesome to unlock and lock it every day. To celebrate Trevor and Tobias obtaining supernatural abilities, that group of people carried a lot of supplies to a large room to celebrate. There were men and women eating and drinking. There were beers, snacks, and some skewers I prepared in advance anyway. When they saw the fresh meat, they drooled. A girl saw the ring on my hand and praised it for being so beautiful. I simply took it off to show it. In the dark, the gem sparkled with a dazzling light, and countless eyes stared at it. It's so beautiful. In the envy of the girl, I put the ring back on. I felt a little sleepy and very tired, so I went back to my room to rest in advance. Indiana, my dream. I felt extremely hot all over. When I opened my eyes, I saw a completely strange face. I was carried outside. The undercover agent finally took the bait, and the action was faster than I thought. This was on a road piled with waste, and the air was scorching hot. I was overwhelmed by waves of heat, and I felt even worse. Behind me, I heard the voices of the people chasing me. Don't run. It seemed to be Tobias's voice. He sounded very anxious. The man's hand turned into a ball of fire. With a punch, flames burst out in front of me. It was a fire-based supernatural ability. He stopped. When I turned around, I saw a group of strange people appear, including a man who looked extremely wretched. His lecherous eyes were rolling all over me. How wretched was he? Think of the guy with the swamp ability in One Piece. Girl, I finally found you. You really made your father look for you. The middle-aged man put away his lustful gaze and tried to claim kinship with me. I was an orphan girl with no parents. Where did this father come from? I wanted to use the weapons of the system to protect myself, but my body was held down and I couldn't move at all. Sure enough, an ordinary person was like a kitten in front of a person with supernatural abilities, so weak that they could be pinched to death with a finger. The outdoor temperature was very high. After staying there for a while, I felt dizzy, my breathing became rapid, and my body gradually went limp. It was even difficult for me to stand. The man tightly wrapped his arm around my waist. In my blurred vision, I seemed to see Tobias's figure. The man who was just behind me stepped out from the crowd. I couldn't see the expression on his face, but I imagined it must be extremely sinister. He played with my spatial ring in his hand. The next second, he said to Tobias, "All your supplies are in here, right?" Tobias watched them quietly without saying a word, but waited patiently for him to continue. "Do you want her, or this?" He turned and pointed at me, while holding the ring high with his other hand. The gem sparkled brightly in the dim light. 16. Any normal person would know what choice to make, but I still managed to hold on and not faint. The ring, everything in front of me went completely black. 17. Give you the ring, and return her to me. I pointed at Sophia, who had fainted. The man in front of me was my university teacher. He looked decent on the surface, but in reality, he was far from a good person. Under the guise of being a teacher, he had harmed countless girls. The teacher could no longer hide his true nature. He gave a cunning smile. "Sure, but how do I know that once I return her to you, you won't come and snatch the ring back from me?" He spoke casually, picking at the dirt under his fingernails at the same time. His annoying appearance made me want to rush up and kill him, but his men held a dagger to Sophia's neck. Blood trickled down from her wound little by little. She had fainted long ago, but her body was propped up by others. I looked at the most unremarkable person in the group. Sure enough, he had secretly with the teacher. He also told the teacher about Sophia's spatial ring. I had expected there to be a traitor in the team. Recently, there had been people lurking near the community, keeping an eye on our building. I had been eager to expose the undercover agent. Despite all my calculations, I had missed one thing. Sophia had deceived me. She didn't have supernatural abilities at all. The physical quality of a person with supernatural abilities wouldn't be that poor. Just by looking at her pale face, I knew she was an ordinary person. She just had a large amount of water stored in her space. The teacher's name was Wesley, and he was a real beast. Seeing that I didn't respond, he began to set conditions. He pointed at the girl behind me. "Let her come with us. I'll return the other one to you when we reach our destination." My heart tightened, and I clenched my fists. "How do I know you won't kidnap all of us when the time comes?" Wesley looked up and gave me a disdainful look. "Do you think you have the right to choose?" A shadow of a large bird flashed across the ground. Only then did I realize that it had already dawned before I knew it. Olivia readily stepped forward and silently agreed to the request. I hadn't even voiced yet. Since we formed a team and fled from the school, we had gone through countless life and death trials. Only after arriving here did we have a temporary period of peace. Everyone was very grateful for Sophia's help. She said she didn't want to share the food with others, but the next day, she secretly gave us food and drinks. That's how we got rid of the days of suffering from hunger and thirst. She patted me on the shoulder, then walked up to Sophia and carried the slender girl on her back without a word. Then she followed the group and left. Wesley was very suspicious. Every few steps, he would turn around to see if anyone was following. He would also look up from time to time to check for drones, but there was nothing in the sky except clouds and birds. He walked away with confidence. I clenched my fists tightly, thinking about countermeasures. We could find supplies again, but my wife must not be harmed. A girl like her, who was willing to be completely open with me, was hard to find even in peacetime. Suddenly, my body changed. I turned into a gust of wind. I could freely change the wind's speed, and my body became transparent as a result. After telling them to hurry back to the base, I carefully followed behind. 18. Sure enough, they didn't notice that I was closely following them. Wesley's base was in the underground garage of this community. The entrance and exit were blocked with, and the gaps were sealed with cement. In the corner of the garage entrance, there were many decaying corpses discarded there. Flies swarmed around the bodies. After surviving in the apocalypse for these days, I had long become immune to this putrid smell. I followed them into the underground garage. The temperature in the underground garage was cooler than on the ground. Most of the survivors I saw there were men. They lay limply in the corner, their lips dry and peeling. Wesley held up the ring in front of everyone. Thank this beautiful lady for bringing us precious supplies. His lewd gaze fell on Olivia and Sophia. As expected, he had no intention of letting the two girls go. In a flash, he locked both girls in a small room at the entrance, and several people stood guard outside. I immediately revealed myself and unleashed my trump card, a tornado. The people outside the door were instantly blown away by my ability. Before they could react, I quickly entered the room and grabbed the two girls. The traitor reacted quickly. As soon as I stepped out of the room, he blocked my way. Without a word, he threw a ball of fire at me. I quickly shielded the two girls. Just as I was struggling to find a way to break through, a large bird descended from the sky. It landed in front of me and quickly snatched the two girls I was protecting. Go! The bird's face suddenly transformed into a human face. I looked at the girl in front of me in surprise, then I jumped on her back as well. Wesley shouted from inside, "Forget it, come and divide the supplies." Only then did the traitor let us go. Lying on the broad back of the large bird, I felt a lingering fear. The bird circled in the air, reluctant to leave. "There's going to be a good show," the bird said. At that moment, Sophia woke up. She looked down with great interest and kept shouting, "Charlotte, fly lower." Then a miraculous scene occurred. Countless zombies poured out of Wesley's base. The dense crowd was so large that I couldn't tell where the humans were. Zombies within a 10-kilometer radius. What a fool. Sophia gave a sinister and cunning smile, and I was simply furious. If I had been greedy, I would have been eaten by the horde of zombies that were released. Even after returning to the rooftop of the community building, I still felt a lingering sense of dread. 19. Charlotte brought the three of us to the rooftop and quickly returned to her original form. Just as I was about to scold Tobias for choosing the supplies, he suddenly called out to Charlotte, "Sis." Charlotte also looked at Tobias curiously for a long time, so long that I thought time had stood still. Finally, Charlotte let out a long "oh," and then added, "My dear little brother, why have you become so old and dark?" Tobias was so shocked that he spat out a mouthful of blood, but he soon laughed and happily hugged Charlotte. It turned out that one of them took their father's surname, and the other took their mother's surname. Otherwise, how could I not have guessed that they were siblings? Olivia watched the scene with great interest and said, "They really do look alike. They must be siblings." I looked at Tobias's dark face for a long time but couldn't see any resemblance. He was very good-looking when he was fair. He had a lot of fans at our university. Olivia explained. Wait, Tobias was a college student. Later, I learned from Tobias that their group were all college students, and the older ones were professors from the school. Although he was a bit harsh on those scumbags, he thought Charlotte had been killed, but he still didn't take their lives. That was considered merciful. As the president of the student union, Tobias became the leader of the survivor team and worked hard for everyone's survival. He was only 20 years old this year, and I, a 25-year-old woman on the verge of 30, actually, we were all very surprised when we found out about this. 20. The survivor base was quickly established. Tobias's brothers and the professors all joined the base to contribute to the future of humanity. I originally wanted to exchange for the shelter and live a laid-back life, but Tobias stopped me. He insisted that I join him and contribute my part. Without hesitation, I donated a large number of supplies. It turned out that those professors were experts in virus research. No wonder I earned 1,000,000 points just for saving them. Later, just by providing them with food, I maxed out my points every day. So, with a wave of my hand, I exchanged for multiple spatial rings that had a limit on the number of exchanges. In an instant, all the zombies in the city disappeared, but it was far from enough to hold all the zombies in the world. Finally, the day came when I accumulated enough points, 100 million. With excitement, I opened the door to the bunker. The space was much larger than I had imagined. It seemed endless at a glance, and there were numerous rooms. The facilities in the bunker worked automatically, requiring almost no human operation. The bunker was divided into several major areas: living quarters, teaching area, fitness area, medical area, storage area, and planting area. The living quarters included a large cafeteria. I tried the food there once. It was as delicious and visually appealing as the food exchanged in the System Mall. As I ate a serving of mapo tofu rice, I sighed to myself, "It's a pity, it lacks that authentic wok flavor." "Host, don't be so picky," the system said angrily, seeing such a great living environment. It was much better than living in an air raid shelter. I immediately brought the leader of the base here and Asked him to move the survivor base to my place. There was plenty of room for more people here, and the resources were endless. When the base leader arrived, he looked at everything in front of him in disbelief and even wanted to hand over his leadership position to me. I waved my hand. I don't want to be in charge. You should take on this difficult task. Seeing that I declined, he had to give up. I knew very well that he was just being polite, but I did manage to live a laid-back life. On the other hand, Tobias led a group of people to work hard everywhere. There was nothing I could do. After all, he majored in finance. If he had chosen a major in biology, he would be much more comfortable now. The professors spent every day in the laboratory, researching the antidote for the zombie virus. With the help of the zombies Tobias captured, they managed to reverse the condition of zombie-infected people slightly. They saw signs of reversal in the cells that hadn't died yet under the microscope. Seeing hope, the professors worked even harder on their research. I didn't understand those profound scientific concepts. I just ate, drank, and had fun every day. Like her brother, Charlotte flew around every day, searching for survivors. I encouraged her to eat the crystal core only after I saw that Tobias had actually obtained supernatural abilities. She was disgusted by the foul smell but gritted her teeth and swallowed it. She obtained enhanced swan-like abilities. She could fly and had some combat capabilities. An electronic voice rang in my head. The host cooking for the hungry neighbors is an act of a virgin. For each act of a virgin, rescuing one person rewards 100 points. A total of 1,500 points are obtained. Points can be exchanged for prizes in the mall. Damn it. I gritted my teeth and reminded myself that I would lose the system if I got supernatural abilities. That's how I managed to resist the temptation after accumulating enough points for my second major goal. The survivor base was full. The second doomsday bunker was taken over by the country and placed in another big city. It was very simple to choose the location in the system mall. There was no need to actually transport it there. There was still hope for humanity's future. The high temperature lasted for half a year, and not a single drop of rain fell. I only dared to go out at night. Suddenly, a drop of water fell on my head, and then more and more rain poured down from the sky. Excitement welled up in me. Some survivors who were outside danced with joy and ran back to the base, shouting, "It's raining, it's raining." The half-year-long heat wave finally came to an end. Tobias appeared from nowhere and hugged my waist. "Sister, if there's a flood, will your bunker be flooded?" Ever since he found out I was older than him, he had been calling me sister every day. No way.